Ezekiel. Now it came to pass in the 30th year, in the 4th month, on the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the Kabar river, that the cosmos were opened and I saw visions of Elohim. On the 5th day of the month, that was the 5th year of King Jehoiakim's captivity, the word of YHWH came expressly to Ezekiel the priest, the son of Buzi, in the land of the Chaldeans by the Kabar river, and the hand of YHWH was there upon him. And I looked, and lo, a whirlwind came out of the north, a great cloud mass and a supernatural fire enfolding itself, and brightness was around it, and out of its center radiated the color of amber, out of the midst of the supernatural fire. Also out of its center came the likeness of 4 living creatures. And this was their appearance, they had the likeness of a man. And everyone had 4 faces, and everyone had 4 wings. And their feet were straight feet, and the sole of their feet was like the sole of a calf's foot, and they sparkled like the color of polished brass. And they had the hands of a man under their wings on their 4 sides, and those 4 had their faces and their wings. Their wings were joined one to another, they turned not when they went everyone straight forward. As for the likeness of their faces, those 4 had the face of a man, the face of a lion on the right side, and those 4 had the face of an ox on the left side, they also had the face of an eagle. So were their faces, and their wings were stretched upward, 2 wings of everyone were joined one to another, and 2 covered their bodies. And they went everyone straight forward, wherever the Spirit went, and they turned not when they went. As for the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance was like burning coals of fire, and like the appearance of torches, it went up and down among the living creatures, and the fire was bright, and out of the supernatural fire went out lightning. And the living creatures ran and returned as the appearance of a flash of lightning. Now as I observed the living creatures, I noted one wheel upon the earth by the living creatures, with his 4 faces. The appearance of the wheels and their work was like the color of a precious yellowish stone, and those 4 had one likeness, and their appearance and their work was as it were a wheel in the middle of a wheel. When they went on their 4 sides, and they turned not when they went. As for their convex surfaces, they were so high that they were terrifying, and their convex surfaces were full of eyes all around those 4. And when the living creatures went, the wheels went by them, and when the living creatures were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up. Wherever the Spirit went, they went in that direction. And the wheels rose close beside them, because the spirit of the living beings was in the wheels. When those went, these went, and when those stood, these stood, and when those were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up opposite them, because the spirit of the living creature was in the wheels. And the likeness of the canopy upon the heads of the living creature was as the color of an awesome crystal, stretched out over their heads above. And under the canopy were their wings straight, one toward the other, everyone had 2, which covered on this side, and everyone had 2, which covered on that side of their bodies. And when they went I heard the noise of their wings, like the noise of great waters, as the voice of Shaddai, the voice of speech, as the sound of an army. When they stood, they let down their wings. And there was a voice from the canopy that was over their heads, and when they stood they let down their wings. And above the firmament that was over their heads there was the likeness of a throne, as the appearance of a sapphire stone, Urim Thummim, and upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness as the appearance of a man above upon it. And I saw as the color of amber, as the appearance of fire all around within it, from the appearance of his hips even upward, and from the appearance of his hips even downward, I saw as it were the appearance of supernatural fire, and it had brightness surrounding it. As the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud in the day of rain, so was the appearance of the brightness all around. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of YHWH. And when I saw it, I fell upon my face and I heard a voice of one that spoke. And he said to me, Son of man, stand on your feet and I will speak to you. And the Spirit entered into me when he spoke to me, and set me on my feet so that I heard him that spoke to me. Then he said to me, Son of man, I send you to the children of Israel, to a rebellious nation that has rebelled against me. They and their forefathers have revolted against me, even to this very day. Because they are obstinate children and hardened. I will send you to them, and you will say to them, This is what Adonai YHWH declares. And they, whether they will hear, or whether they will desist, for they are a rebellious house, yet will know that there has been a prophet among them. And you, Son of man, be not afraid of them, neither be afraid of their words, though briars and thorns are with you, and you will reside among scorpions, be not afraid of their words, nor be dismayed at their presence, though they are a rebellious house. And you will speak my words to them, whether they will hear, or whether they will desist, because they are most rebellious. But you, Son of man, hear what I say to you, do not be rebellious like that rebellious house, open your mouth and eat what I give you. And when I looked, a hand was sent to me, and lo, a roll of a scroll was there, and he spread it before me, and it was written inside and out, and there was written in it dirges, and moaning, and woe. Moreover he said to me, Son of man, eat what you find, eat this roll and go speak to the house of Israel. So I opened my mouth and he caused me to eat that roll. And he said to me, Son of man, cause your belly to eat and fill your bowels with this roll that I give you. Then I did eat it, and it was in my mouth as honey for sweetness. And he said to me, Son of man, go, get yourself to the house of Israel and speak with my words to them. Because you are not sent to a people of a foreign speech and of a difficult dialect, but to the house of Israel, not to many people of a foreign speech and of a difficult dialect, whose words you cannot understand. Certainly, had I sent you to them, they would have listened to you. But the house of Israel will not listen to you, because they will not listen to me, because all the house of Israel are hardened and obstinate. See, I have made your face strong against their faces, and your forehead strong against their foreheads. As a sharp stone harder than flint have I made your forehead, fear them not, neither be dismayed at their presence, though they are a rebellious house. Moreover he said to me, Son of man, all my words that I will speak to you receive in your heart, and hear with your ears. And go, get yourself to them of the captivity, to the children of your people and speak to them, and tell them, this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, whether they will hear, or whether they will desist. Then the Spirit took me up and I heard behind me a sound of a great quaking saying, Blessed is the glory of Yhwh from his standing place. I heard also the sound of the wings of the living creatures that touched one another, and the sound of the wheels opposite them, and a sound of a great quaking. So the Spirit lifted me up and took me away, and I went in bitterness, in the venom of my spirit, but the hand of Yhwh was strong upon me. Then I came to them of the captivity at Tel Abib, that lived by the Kabar river, and I sat where they sat, and remained there stunned among them for 7 days. And it came to pass at the end of 7 days, that the word of Yhwh came to me saying, Son of man, I have made you a watchman to the house of Israel, therefore hear the word at my mouth, and give them warning from me. When I say to the wicked, you will certainly die, and you give him not warning, nor speak to warn the wicked from his wicked way, to save his life, the same wicked one will die in his depravity, but his blood will I require at your hand. Still if you warn the wicked, and he turns not from his wrong, nor from his wicked way, he will die in his depravity, but you have delivered yourself. Again, when a righteous person will turn from his righteousness and commit injustice, and I lay a stumbling block before him, he will die. Because you have not given him warning, he will die in his sin, and his righteousness that he has done will not be remembered, but his blood will I require at your hand. Nevertheless if you warn the righteous, that the righteous sin not, and he does not sin, he will certainly live, because he is warned, also you have delivered yourself. Then the hand of Yhwh was there upon me, and he said to me, Get up, go out into the plain and I will talk with you there. Then I got up and went out into the plain, and lo, the glory of Yhwh stood there, as the glory that I saw by the Kabar river, and I fell on my face. Then the Spirit entered into me and set me on my feet and spoke with me, and said to me, Go, shut yourself within your house. But you, O Son of man, look, they will put cords on you and will bind you with them, and you will not go out among them, and I will make your tongue cleave to the roof of your mouth so that you will be dumb, and will not be a man that can rebuke them, because they are a rebellious house. But when I speak with you, I will open your mouth and you will say to them, This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, He that hears, let him hear, and he that desists, let him desist, because they are a rebellious house. You also, son of man, take yourself a brick and lay it before you, and engrave on it the city, even Jerusalem, and lay siege against it, and build a fort against it, and cast a mound against it, set the camp also against it, and set battering rams against it all around. Moreover take to yourself an iron pan and set it for a wall of iron between you and the city, and set your face against it, and it will be besieged, and you will lay siege against it. This will be a sign to the house of Israel. Lie also upon your left side, and lay the depravity of the house of Israel upon it, according to the number of the days that you will lie upon it, you will bear their depravity. Because I have laid on you the years of their depravity, according to the number of the days, 390 days, so will you bear the depravity of the house of Israel. And when you have accomplished them, lie again on your right side, and you will bear the depravity of the house of Judah 40 days, I have appointed you each day for a year. Therefore you will set your face toward the siege of Jerusalem, and your arm will be uncovered, and you will prophesy against it. And observe, I will lay cords on you and you will not turn yourself from one side to another, until you have ended the days of your siege. Take also to yourself wheat, barley, beans, lentils, millet, and spelt, and put them in one vessel, and make yourself bread, according to the number of the days that you will lie on your side, 390 days will you eat. And your food that you will eat will be by weight, 20 shekels, 10 ounces, a day, from time to time you will eat it. You will also drink water by measure, 1/6 part of an hin, 2/3 quart, from time to time you will drink it. And you will eat it as barley cakes, and you will bake it with dung that comes out of man, in their sight. And YHWH said, even so will the children of Israel eat their unclean bread among the Gentiles where I will drive them. Then I said, Ah Adonai YHWH. Note, I have not become unclean, because, from my youth up even until now have I not eaten of what dies of itself, or is torn in pieces, neither came their unclean flesh into my mouth. Then he replied to me, Lo, I have given you cow's dung for man's dung, and you will prepare your bread with it. Moreover he said to me, Son of man, look, I will break the staff of bread in Jerusalem, and they will eat bread by weight, and with care, and they will drink water by measure, and with dismay, that they may want food and water, and be appalled one with another, and consume away for their depravity. And you, son of man, take yourself a sharp knife, take yourself a barber's razor, and cause it to pass on your head and on your beard, then take yourself balances to weigh, and divide the hair. You will burn with fire 1/3 part in the center of the city, when the days of the siege are fulfilled, and you will take 1/3 part, and strike around it with a knife. And 1/3 part you will scatter in the wind, and I will draw out a sword after them. You will also take from it a few hairs in number, and bind them in your skirts. Then take of them again, and cast them into the middle of the fire, and burn them in the fire, because from there will a fire come out into all the house of Israel. This is what Adonai YHWH declares, this is Jerusalem, I have set it in the middle of the nations and countries that are all around her. And she has changed my judgments into wickedness more than the nations, and my statutes more than the countries that are all around her, because they have refused my judgments and my statutes, they have not walked in them. Therefore this is what Adonai YHWH declares, because you multiplied more than the nations that are around you, and have not walked in my statutes, neither have observed my judgments, neither have done according to the judgments of the nations that are around you. Therefore this is what Adonai YHWH declares, look, I, even I, am against you, and will execute judgments in the middle of you in the sight of the nations. And I will do in you what I have not done, and in which I will not do any more the like, because of all your disgusting things. Therefore the dads will eat the sons in the center of you, and the sons will eat their dads, and I will execute judgments in you, and the whole remnant of you will I scatter into all the winds. Therefore, as I live, declares Adonai YHWH, certainly because you have defiled my sacred place with all your detestable things, and with all your abominations, therefore I will also diminish you, neither will my eye spare, neither will I have any pity. And 1/3 part of you will die with the plague, and with famine will they be consumed in the middle of you, and 1/3 part will fall by the sword all around you. And I will scatter 1/3 part into all the winds, and I will draw out a sword after them. So will my anger be accomplished, and I will cause my fury to rest on them, and I will be comforted, and they will know that I, YHWH, has spoken it in my zeal, when I have accomplished my fury in them. Moreover I will make you a place laid waste, and a scorn among the nations that are all around you, in the sight of all that pass by. So it will be a scorn and a taunt, a correction and a devastation to the nations that are all around you, when I will execute judgments in you in anger and in fury and in heated rebukes. I YHWH have spoken it. When I will send on them the bad arrows of famine that will be for their destruction, and that I will send to destroy you, and I will increase the famine upon you, and will break your staff of food, so I will send on you famine and bad organisms, and they will bereave you, and plague and blood will pass through you, and I will bring the sword on you. I YHWH have spoken it. Then the word of YHWH came to me saying, Son of man, set your face toward the mountains of Israel and prophesy against them, and say, You mountains of Israel, hear the word of Adonai YHWH, this is what YHWH Elohim declares to the mountains, hills, rivers, and to the valleys, Look, I, even I, will bring a sword on you, and I will destroy your worship places. And your altars will be desolate, and your images will be broken, and I will cast down your slain before your idols. And I will lay the dead corpses of the children of Israel before their idols, and I will scatter your bones all around your altars. In all your living places the cities will be laid waste and the worship places will be desolate, that your altars may be laid waste and made desolate, and your idols may be broken and cease, and your images may be cut down and your works may be obliterated. And the slain will fall in the midst of you, and you will know that I am YHWH. Still I will leave a remnant so that you may have some that will escape the sword among the nations, when you will be scattered through the countries. And they that escape of you will remember me among the nations where they will be carried captives, because I am broken with their prostitute's heart that has departed from me, and with their eyes that go a-whoring after their idols, and they will loathe themselves for the badness that they have committed in all their abominations. And they will know that I am YHWH, and that I have not said in vain that I would do this badness to them. This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, strike with your hand and stamp with your foot, and say, alas for all the bad abominations of the house of Israel. Because they will fall by the sword, famine, and by the plague. He that is far off will die of the plague, and he that is near will fall by the sword, and he that remains and is besieged will die by the famine, so will I accomplish my fury on them. Then will you know that I am Yhwh, when their slain will be among their idols all around their altars, upon every high hill, in all the tops of the mountains and under every green tree, and under every thick oak, the place where they did offer sweet savor to all their idols. So, I will stretch out my hand on them and make the land desolate, yes, more desolate than the wilderness toward Diblath, in all their habitations, and they will know that I am Yhwh. Moreover the word of Yhwh came to me saying, also, Son of man, this is what Adonai Yhwh declares to the land of Israel, an end, the end has come upon the four extremities of the land. Now has the end come upon you, and I will send my anger upon you, and will judge you according to your ways, and will bestow on you all your abominations. And my eye will not spare you, neither will I have pity, but I will ascribe your ways upon you, and your abominations will be in the midst of you, and you will know that I am Yhwh. This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, a certain bad, note, has come. An end has come, the end has come, it watches for you, note, it has come. The morning has come to you, O you that live in the land, the time has come, the day of trouble is near, and not the echoing again of the mountains. Now will I shortly pour out my fury on you, and accomplish my anger upon you, and I will judge you according to your ways, and will repay you for all your abominations. And my eye will not spare, neither will I have pity, I will repay you according to your ways and your abominations that are in the midst of you, and you will know that I am Yhwh that strikes. Observe the day, watch, it has come, the morning has arrived, the branch has blossomed, pride has budded. Violence has risen up into a branch of wickedness, none of them will remain, nor of their multitude, nor of any of theirs, neither will there be wailing for them. The time is come, the day draws near, let not the buyer rejoice nor the seller mourn, because burning anger is on the entire multitude. Because the seller will not return to what is sold, although they were still alive, because the vision is touching the whole multitude that will not return, neither will any strengthen himself in the depravity of his life. They have blown the trumpet, even to make all ready, but none goes to the battle, because my burning anger is on the entire multitude. The sword is outside, and the plague and the famine, inside, he that is in the field will die with the sword, and he that is in the city, famine and plague will devour him. But they that escape of them will escape, and will be on the mountains like doves of the valleys, all of them mourning, everyone for their depravity. All hands will be feeble, and all knees will be weak as water. They will also gird themselves with sackcloth, and horror will cover them, and shame will be on all faces, and baldness on all of their heads. They will cast their silver in the streets and their gold will be removed, their silver and their gold will not be able to deliver them in the day of the anger of Yhwh. They will not satisfy themselves, neither fill their bowels, because it is the stumbling block of their depravity. As to the beauty of his ornament, for excellency he set it, and the images of their abominations, their detestable things, they made in it, therefore I have given it to them for impurity. And I will give it into the hands of the foreigner for booty, and to the wicked of the earth for plunder, and they will desecrate it. My face I will turn also from them, and they will desecrate my treasure, because the robbers will enter into it, and desecrate it. Make a chain, because the land is full of bloody crimes, and the city is full of violence. Therefore I will bring the worst of the heathen, and they will possess their houses, I will also make the pomp of the strong to cease, and their holy places will be desecrated. Destruction comes, and they will seek peace, and there will be none. Mischief will come upon mischief, and rumor will be upon rumor, then will they seek a vision from the prophet, but the law will perish from the priest, and counsel from the elder. The king will mourn, and the chief will be clothed with desolation, and the hands of the people of the land will be troubled. I will do to them after their way, and according to their deserts I will judge them, and they will know that I am Yhwh. And it came to pass, in the 6th year, in the 6th month, on the 5th day of the month as I sat in my house, and the elders of Judah sat before me, that the hand of Adonai Yhwh fell there upon me. Then I observed, and lo a likeness as the appearance of supernatural fire, from the appearance of his hips downward, supernatural fire, and from his hips upward, as the appearance of brightness, as the color of amber. And he put out the form of a hand, and took me by a lock of my head, and the Spirit lifted me up between the land and the skies, and brought me in the visions of Elohim to Jerusalem, to the door of the inner gate that looks toward the north, where was the seat of the image of jealousy, which provokes to jealousy. And observe, the glory of the Elohim of Israel was there, according to the vision that I saw in the plain. Then he said to me, Son of man, lift up your eyes now toward the road to the north. So I lifted up my eyes toward the road to the north, and behold northward at the gate of the altar this image of jealousy in the entry. He said furthermore to me, Son of man, do you see what they do? Even the great abominations that the house of Israel commits here, that I should go far off from my sacred place? But turn you yet again, and you will see greater abominations. And he brought me to the door of the court, and when I looked, behold a hole in the wall. Then he said to me, Son of man, dig now in the wall, and when I had excavated in the wall, note, a door. And he said to me, Go in and see the bad abominations that they do here. So I went in and looked, and observed every form of creeping things, and abominable beasts, and all the idols of the house of Israel, engraved upon the wall all around. And there stood before them 70 men from the elders of the house of Israel, and in the middle of them stood Jaazaniah the son of Shaphan, with every man his censer in his hand, and a thick cloud of incense went up. Then he said to me, Son of man, have you seen what the elders of the house of Israel do in the dark, every man in the chambers of his imagery? Because they say, YHWH does not see us, YHWH has forsaken the earth. He also said to me, Turn yourself yet again, and you will see greater abominations that they do. Then he brought me to the door of the gate of YHWH's house that was toward the north, and observe, there sat women weeping for Tammuz. Then he said to me, Have you seen this, O son of man? Turn yourself still again, and you will see greater abominations than these. And he brought me into the inner court of YHWH's house, and behold, at the door of the palace of YHWH, between the porch and the altar, were 25 men, with their backs toward the palace of YHWH, and their faces toward the east, and they worshipped the sun toward the east. Then he said to me, Have you seen this, O son of man? Is it a light thing to the house of Judah that they commit the abominations that they commit here? Because they have filled the land with violence, and have returned to provoke me to anger, and lo, they put the branch to their nose. Therefore I will also deal in fury, my eye will not spare, neither will I have pity, and though they cry in my ears with a loud voice, still I will not hear them. He cried also in my ears with a loud voice saying, Cause them that have charge over the city to draw near, even every man with his destroying weapon in his hand. And see, 6 men came from the way of the higher gate that lies toward the north, and every man a slaughter weapon in his hand, and one man among them was clothed with linen, with a writer's inkhorn by his side, and they went in, and stood beside the bronze altar. And the glory of the Elohim of Israel was gone up from the cherub, where he was, to the threshold of the house. And he called to the man clothed with linen that had the writer's inkhorn by his side, and YHWH said to him, Go through the midst of the city, through the center of Jerusalem and set a mark on the foreheads of the men that sigh and that cry for all the abominations that are done in its center. And to the others he said in my hearing, Go after him through the city, and strike, let not your eye spare, neither have yourself pity, kill and destroy old and young, both virgins, and little children, and women, but come not near anyone upon whom is the mark, and begin at my sacred place. Then they began with the old men that were before the house. And he said to them, Defile the house, and fill the courts with the slain, go yourself out. And they went out and killed in the city. And it came to pass, while they were killing them, and I was left, that I fell on my face and cried, and said, Ah Adonai YHWH. Will you destroy all the remnant of Israel in your pouring out of your fury upon Jerusalem? Then he replied to me, The depravity of the house of Israel and Judah is exceedingly great, and the land is full of blood, and the city full of perversion, because they say, YHWH has forsaken the earth, and YHWH sees not. And as for me also, my eye will not spare, neither will I have pity, but I will bestow their way upon their head. And look, the man clothed with linen that had the inkhorn by his side, reported the matter saying, I have done as you have commanded me. Then I looked and observed, in the vault of the cosmos that was above the head of the cherubim there appeared over them as it were a sapphire stone, as the appearance of the likeness of a throne. And he spoke to the man clothed with linen, and said, Go in between the wheels, even under the cherub, and fill your hand with coals of fire from between the cherubim, and scatter them over the city. Then he entered in my sight. Now the cherubim stood on the right side of the house, when the man went in, and the cloud mass filled the inner court. Then the glory of YHWH went up from the cherub, and stood over the threshold of the house, and the house was filled with the cloud mass, and the court was full of the brightness of YHWH's glory, and the sound of the cherubim's wings was heard even to the outer court, as the voice of Shaddai when he speaks. Then it came to pass that when he had commanded the man clothed with linen, saying, Take fire from between the wheels, from between the cherubim, Then he went in and stood beside the wheels. And one cherub stretched out his hand from between the cherubim to the fire that was between the cherubim, and took of it, and put it into the hands of him that was clothed with linen, who took it and went out. And there appeared in the cherubim the form of a man's hand under their wings. And when I looked, the 4 wheels by the cherubim, one wheel by one cherub, and another wheel by another cherub, and the appearance of the wheels was as the color of a precious yellowish gemstone. And as for their appearances, they 4 had one likeness, as if a wheel had been in the middle of a wheel. When they went on their 4 sides, they turned not as they went, but to the place where the head looked they followed it, they turned not as they went. And their whole body, and their backs, and their hands, and their wings, and the wheels, were full of eyes all around, even the wheels that those 4 had. As for the wheels, it was cried to them in my hearing, O wheel. And everyone had 4 faces, the first face was the face of a cherub, and the second face was the face of a man, and the third the face of a lion, and the fourth the face of an eagle. And the cherubim were lifted up. This is the living creature that I saw by the Kabar river. And when the cherubim went, the wheels went by them, and when the cherubim lifted up their wings to mount up from the earth, the same wheels also turned not from beside them. When they stood, these stood, and when they were lifted up, these lifted up themselves also, because the spirit of the living creature was in them. Then the glory of YHWH departed from off the threshold of the house and stood over the cherubim. And the cherubim lifted up their wings, and mounted up from the earth in my sight. When they went out, the wheels also were beside them, and everyone stood at the door of the east gate of YHWH's house, and the glory of the Elohim of Israel was over them above. This is the living creature that I saw under the Elohim of Israel by the Kabar river, and I knew that they were the cherubim. Everyone had 4 faces apiece, and everyone 4 wings, and the likeness of the hands of a man was under their wings. And the likeness of their faces was the same faces that I saw by the Kabar river, their appearances and themselves, they went everyone straight forward. Moreover the Spirit lifted me up and brought me to the east gate of YHWH's house that looks eastward, and I observed at the door of the gate 25 men, among whom I saw Jozaniah the son of Azur, and Pelatiah the son of Benaiah, chiefs of the people. Then he said to me, Son of man, these are the men that devise trouble, and give wicked counsel in this city, that say, It is not near, let us build houses, this city is the cauldron and we are the flesh. Therefore prophesy against them, prophesy, O son of man. And the spirit of YHWH fell upon me, and said to me, Speak, this is what YHWH declares, so have you said, O house of Israel, because I know the things that come into your mind, every one of them. You have multiplied your slain in this city, and you have filled the streets in it with the slain. Therefore this is what Adonai YHWH declares, your slain who you have laid in the center of it, they are the flesh, and this city is the cauldron, but I will bring you out of the middle of it. You have feared the sword, and I will bring a sword on you, declares Adonai YHWH. And I will bring you out of its center, and deliver you into the hands of foreigners, and will execute judgments among you. You will fall by the sword, I will judge you in the territory of Israel, and you will know that I am YHWH. This city will not be your cauldron, neither will you be the flesh in its center, but I will judge you in the territory of Israel, and you will know that I am YHWH, because you have not walked in my statutes, neither executed my judgments, but have done after the customs of the heathen that are all around you. And it came to pass when I prophesied, that Pelatiah the son of Benaiah died. Then I fell down on my face and cried with a loud voice and said, Ah Adonai YHWH. Will you make a full end of the remnant of Israel? Again the word of YHWH came to me saying, Son of man, your brothers, even your kinship, the men of your right of redemption, and all the house of Israel holy, are they to who the inhabitants of Jerusalem have said, Get you far from YHWH, unto us is this land given in possession. Therefore say, This is what Adonai YHWH declares, although I have cast them far off among the heathen, and although I have scattered them among the countries, still I will be to them as a little sacred place in the countries where they will come. Therefore say, This is what Adonai YHWH declares, I will even gather you from the people, and assemble you out of the countries where you have been scattered, and I will give you the land of Israel. And they will come there, and they will take away all the detestable things in it and all the abominations in it from there. And I will give them one heart, and I will put a new spirit within you, and I will take the stony heart out of their flesh, and will give them a heart of flesh. That they may walk in my statutes and observe my ordinances, and institute them, and they will be my people, and I will be their Elohim. But as for those whose heart walks after the heart of their detestable things and their abominations, I will repay their way on their own heads, declares Adonai YHWH. Then did the cherubim lift up their wings, and the wheels beside them, and the glory of the Elohim of Israel was over them above. And the glory of YHWH went up from the middle of the city, and stood upon the mountain that is on the east side of the city. Afterwards the Spirit took me up, and brought me in a vision by the Spirit of Elohim into Chaldea, to them of the captivity. So the vision that I had seen went up from me. Then I spoke to them of the captivity all the things that YHWH had shown me. The word of YHWH also came to me saying, Son of man, you live among a rebellious house, which have eyes to see but see not, they have ears to hear but hear not, because they are a rebellious house. Therefore, Son of man, prepare yourself equipment for exile, and leave by day in their sight, and you will leave from your place to another place in their sight, it may be they will consider, though they are a rebellious house. Then you will bring out your equipment by day in their sight, as equipment for exile, and you will go out at sunset in their sight, as they that go out into captivity. Dig yourself through the wall in their sight, and carry your articles through it. In their sight you will bear it on your shoulders, and carry it out in the darkness, you will cover your face so that you see not the ground, because I have set you for a sign for the house of Israel. And I did so as I was commanded, I brought out my equipment by day, as equipment for exile, and at sunset I excavated through the wall with my hand, I brought it out in the twilight, and I carried it on my shoulder in their sight. And in the morning came the word of YHWH to me saying, Son of man, has not the house of Israel, the rebellious house, said to you, What are you doing? You reply to them, This is what Adonai YHWH declares, this burden concerns the chiefs in Jerusalem, and all the house of Israel that are among them. Say, I am your sign, like I have done, so will it be done to them, they will be removed and go into captivity. And the chief that is among them will carry on his shoulder in the darkness, and will go out, they will excavate through the wall to carry out. He will cover his face so that he does not see the ground with his eyes. My net I will also spread on him, and he will be caught in my snare, and I will bring him to Babylon, to the land of the Chaldeans, and it he does not see, and there does he die. And I will scatter toward every wind all that are around him to help him, and all his bands, and I will draw out the sword after them. And they will know that I am YHWH, when I will scatter them among the nations, and disperse them in the countries. But I will leave a few people of them from the sword, from the famine, and from the plague, so that they may declare all their abominations among the heathen where they come, and they will know that I am YHWH. Moreover, the word of YHWH came to me saying, Son of man, eat your bread with quaking and drink your water with trembling and with anxiety, and say to the people of the land, This is what Adonai YHWH declares of the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and of the land of Israel. They will eat their food with anxiety, and drink their water with dismay, so that her land may be desolate from all that is therein, because of the violence of all them that dwell therein. And the cities that are inhabited will be laid waste, and the land will be desolate, and you will know that I am YHWH. Then the word of YHWH came to me saying, Son of man, what is that proverb that you have in the land of Israel saying, The days are prolonged, and every vision fails? Tell them therefore, This is what Adonai YHWH declares, I will make this proverb to cease, and they will no more use it as a proverb in Israel, but say to them, The days are at hand, and the effect of every vision. Because there will be no more any false vision nor flattering divination within the house of Israel. Because I am YHWH, I will speak, and the word that I will speak will come to pass, it will be no more prolonged, because in your days, O rebellious house, will I say the word, and will perform it, declares Adonai YHWH. Again the word of YHWH came to me saying, Son of man, look, they of the house of Israel say, the vision that he sees is for many days to come, and he prophesies of the times that are far off. Therefore say to them, This is what Adonai YHWH declares, there will none of my words be prolonged any more, but the word that I have spoken will be done, declares Adonai YHWH. And the word of YHWH came to me saying, Son of man, prophesy against the prophets of Israel that prophesy, and say to them that prophesy out of their own hearts, Hear the word of YHWH, this is what Adonai YHWH declares, Woe to the foolish prophets, that follow their own mind, and have seen nothing. O Israel, your prophets are like the foxes in the deserts. You have not gone up into breaches, nor do you make a fence for the house of Israel, to stand in battle in a day of YHWH. They have seen vanity and lying divination, who are saying, an affirmation of YHWH, and YHWH has not sent them, and they have hoped to establish a word. Have you not seen an empty vision, and have you not spoken a lying divination, where you say, YHWH declares it, but I have not spoken? Therefore this is what Adonai YHWH declares, because you have spoken falsehood and seen lies, therefore take note, I am against you, says YHWH Elohim. And my hand will be upon the prophets that see falsehood, and that divine lies. They will not be in the company of my people, neither will they be written in the writing of the house of Israel, neither will they enter into the land of Israel, and you will know that I am Adonai Yhwh. Because they have seduced my people saying, Peace, and there was no peace, and one built up a wall, and lo, others plastered it with untested mortar. Say to them that plaster it with untested mortar, that it will fall, there will be an overflowing shower, and you, O great hailstones, will fall, and a stormy wind will tear it. Lo, when the wall has fallen, will it not be said to you, Where is the plaster where you have plastered it? Therefore this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, I will even tear it with a stormy wind in my fury, and there will be an overflowing shower in my anger, and great hailstones in my fury to consume it. So will I break down the wall that you have plastered with untested mortar, and bring it down to the ground so that its foundation will be discovered, and it will fall and you will be consumed in its midst, and you will know that I am Yhwh. So will I accomplish my anger upon the wall and on them that have plastered it with untested mortar, and will say to you, The wall is no more, neither they that plastered it, those prophets of Israel that prophesy concerning Jerusalem, and that see visions of peace for her and there is no peace, says Adonai Yhwh. Likewise, Son of man, set your face against the daughters of your people that prophesy out of their own heart, and you prophesy against them. And say, This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, Woe to the women that sew pillows to all armholes, and make veils upon the head of every height to hunt lives. Will you hunt the lives of my people, and will you save the people alive that come to you? And will you desecrate me among my people for handfuls of barley and for pieces of bread, to kill the ones that should not die, and to save the ones alive that should not live, by your lying to my people that hear your lies? Therefore this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, Look, I am against your covered amulets, with which you there hunt the people to make them sprout, and I will tear them from your arms, and will let the people go, even the ones that you hunt to make them sprout. Your veils I will also tear and deliver my people out of your hand, and they will be no more in your hand to be hunted, and you will know that I am Yhwh. Because with lies you have made the heart of the righteous sad, who I have not made sad, and strengthened the hands of the bad, that he should not return from his bad way, by promising him life, therefore you will see no more falsehood, nor divine divinations, because I will deliver my people out of your hand, and you will know that I am Yhwh. Then came some of the elders of Israel to me and sat before me. And the word of Yhwh came to me saying, Son of man, these men have set up their idols in their heart, and put the stumbling block of their depravity before their face. Should I be inquired of at all by them? Therefore speak to them and say to them, This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, Every one of the house of Israel that sets up their idols in their heart, and puts the stumbling block of his depravity before his face, and comes to the prophet, Yhwh will answer him that comes according to the multitude of his idols, that I may seize the house of Israel in their own heart, because they are all estranged from me through their idols. Therefore say to the house of Israel, This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, Change your mind, and turn yourselves from your idols, and turn away your faces from all your disgusting things. Because every one of the house of Israel, or of the foreigner that stays in Israel that separates himself from me, and sets up his idols in his heart, and puts the stumbling block of his depravity before his face, and comes to a prophet to inquire of him concerning me, Yhwh will answer him by myself. And I will set my face against that man, and will make him a sign and a proverb, and I will cut him off from among my people, and you will know that I am Yhwh. And if the prophet is deceived when he has spoken a thing, Yhwh have deceived that prophet, and I will stretch out my hand on him, and will destroy him from among my people Israel. And they will bear the punishment of their depravity, the punishment of the prophet will be even as the punishment of him that seeks him, that the house of Israel may go no more astray from me, neither be unclean any more with all their rebellions, but that they may be my people, and I may be their Elohim, declares Adonai Yhwh. The word of Yhwh came again to me saying, Son of man, when the land sins against me by committing a treacherous act, then I will stretch out my hand upon it, and will break the staff of its bread, and will send famine on it, and will cut off man and animal from it. Though these three men, Noah, Daniel, and Job, were in it, they should deliver but their own lives by their righteousness, says Adonai Yhwh. If I cause vicious beasts to pass through the land, and they spoil it, so that it is wasted so that none may pass through because of the beasts, though these three men were in it, as I live, declares Adonai Yhwh, they will deliver neither sons nor daughters, they only will be delivered, but the land will be waste. Or if I bring a sword on that land and say, Sword, go through the land, so that I cut off man and animal from it, though these three men were in it, as I live, declares Adonai Yhwh, they will deliver neither sons nor daughters, but they only will be delivered themselves. Or if I send a plague into that land and pour out my fury on it in blood, to cut off from it man and animal, though Noah, Daniel, and Job were in it, as I live declares Adonai Yhwh, they will deliver neither son nor daughter, they will but deliver their own lives by their righteousness. Because this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, how much more when I send my 4 distressful judgments on Jerusalem, the sword, famine, vicious beast, and the plague, to cut off from it man and animal. Yet take note, there will be left a remnant that will be brought out, both sons and daughters, see, they will come out to you, and you will see their way and their practices. And you will be comforted concerning the bad that I have brought on Jerusalem, even concerning all that I have brought on it. Then they will comfort you, when you see their ways and their practices, and you will know that I have not done for nothing all that I have accomplished in it, declares Adonai Yhwh. And the word of Yhwh came to me saying, Son of man, what is the vine tree more than any tree, or than a branch that is among the trees of the forest? Will wood be taken from it to do any work? Or will men take a nail of it to hang any vessel on it? Lo, to the fire it has been given for fuel, its 2 ends had the fire eaten, and its midst has been scorched. Is it profitable for work? Observe, when it was whole, it was ready for no work, how much less will it be ready still for any work, when the fire has devoured it and it is scorched? Therefore this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, as the vine tree among the trees of the forest that I have given to the fire for fuel, so will I give the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And I will set my face against them, they will go out from one fire, and another fire will devour them. And you will know that I am Yhwh, when I set my face against them. And I will make the land waste, because they have committed an unfaithful act declares Adonai Yhwh. Again the word of Yhwh came to me saying, Son of man, cause Jerusalem to know her abominations, and say, This is what Adonai Yhwh declares to Jerusalem, Your birth and your nativity is of the land of Canaan, your father was an Amorite, and your mother an Hittite. And as for your nativity, in the day you were born your navel was not cut, neither were you washed in water to clean yourself, you were not salted at all, nor swaddled at all. No eye has had pity on you, to do to you any of these, to have compassion on you, and you are cast onto the face of the field with loathing of your person, in the day you have been born, you. And when I passed by you, and saw you trampled in your own blood, I said to you when you were in your blood, Live, yes, I said to you when you were in your blood, Live. I have caused you to multiply as the bud of the field, and you have increased and grown great, and you are come to excellent ornaments, your breasts are fashioned, and your hair is grown, whereas you were naked and bare before. Now when I passed by you and looked on you, see, your time was the time of love, and I spread my skirt over you, and covered your nakedness, yes, I adjured to you, and entered into a covenant with you, declares Adonai Yhwh, and you became mine. Then I washed you with water, yes, I thoroughly washed away your blood from you, and I anointed you with oil. I clothed you also with embroidered work, and furnished you with badger skin, and I girded you around with fine linen, and I covered you with silk. I decked you also with ornaments, and I put bracelets on your hands, and a chain on your neck. And I put a jewel on your forehead, and earrings in your ears, and a beautiful crown on your head. So were you decked with gold and silver, and your garments were of fine linen, and silk, and embroidered work, you did eat fine flour, honey, and oil, and you were exceedingly beautiful, and you did prosper into a kingdom. And your renown went out among the heathen for your beauty, because it was perfect through my splendor that I had put on you, says Adonai Yhwh. But you did trust in your own beauty, and played the prostitute because of your renown, and poured out your fornication on everyone that passed by, his it was. And of your garments you did take, and decked your worship places with different colors, and played the prostitute there. They are not coming in, nor will it be. You have also taken your fair jewels of my gold and of my silver that I had given you, and fashioned for yourself images of men, and did commit prostitution with them, and took your embroidered garments, and covered them, and you have set my oil and my incense before them. My food also that I gave you, fine flour, oil, and honey with which I fed you, you have even set it before them for a sweet savor, and so it was, declares Adonai Yhwh. Moreover you have taken your sons and your daughters, whom you have borne to me, and these have you sacrificed to them to be devoured. Is this of your prostitution a small matter, that you have killed my children, and delivered them to cause them to pass through the fire for them? And in all your abominations and your prostitution you have not remembered the days of your youth, when you were naked and bare, and were trampled in your blood. And it came to pass after all your wickedness, woe, woe to you, says Adonai Yhwh, that you have also built to yourself an eminent place, and have made yourself a worship place on every street. You have built your worship place at every head of the way, and have made your beauty to be abhorred, and have opened your feet to everyone that passed by, and multiplied your prostitution. You have also committed fornication with the Egyptians your neighbors, great of flesh, and have increased your prostitution, to provoke me to anger. Look, therefore I have stretched out my hand over you, and have diminished your ordinary food, and delivered you to the will of them that hate you, the daughters of the Philistines that are ashamed of your lewd ways. You have played the prostitute also with the Assyrians, because you were not satisfied. Yes, you have played the prostitute with them, and still could not be satisfied. You have moreover multiplied your fornication in the land of Canaan to Chaldea, and still you are not satisfied. How weak is your heart, declares Adonai Yhwh, seeing you do all these things, the work of a domineering whorish woman, in that you built your eminent place in the head of every road, and make your worship places in every street, and have not been as a whore, in that you scorned hire, but as a woman that commits adultery, that takes strangers instead of her husband. They give gifts to all prostitutes, but you give your gifts to all your lovers, and hired them, that they may come to you on every side for your prostitution. And so you were different from other women in your prostitution, that after you none does go a whoring, and in your giving a gift, and a gift has not been given to you, and you are become contrary. Therefore, O whore, hear the word of Yhwh, this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, because your filthiness was poured out, and your nakedness discovered through your prostitution with your lovers, and with all the idols of your abominations, and by the blood of your children that you did give to them. Look, therefore I will gather all your lovers, with whom you have taken pleasure, and all them that you have loved, with all them that you have hated. I will even gather them around and against you, and will expose your nakedness to them so that they may see all your nakedness, and I will judge you, as women that breaks wedlock and sheds blood are judged, and I will give you blood in fury and jealousy. And I will also give you into their hand, and they will throw down your eminent place, and will break down your worship places. They will strip you also of your clothes, and will take your fair jewels, and leave you naked and bare. They will also bring up a company against you, and they will stone you with stones, and thrust you through with their swords. And they will burn your houses with fire, and execute judgments on you in the sight of many women, and I will cause you to cease from playing the prostitute, and you also will give no hire any more. So I will make my fury toward you to rest, and my jealousy will depart from you, and I will be quiet and will be no more angry. Because you have not remembered the days of your youth, but have fretted me in all these things, take note, I also will repay your way upon your head, says Adonai Yhwh, and you will not commit this lewdness above all your abominations. Look, everyone that uses proverbs will use this proverb against you, saying, as is the mother, so is her daughter. You are your mother's daughter, that loathes her husband and her children, and you are the sister of your sisters that loathes their husbands and their children. Your mother was a Hittite and your father an Amorite. And your elder sister is Samaria, she and her daughters that dwell at your left hand, and your younger sister, that dwells at your right hand, is Sodom and her daughters. Still you have not walked after their ways, nor done after their abominations, but, as if that were a very little thing, you were corrupted more than they in all your ways. As I live, declares Adonai Yhwh, Sodom your sister has not done, she nor her daughters, as you have done, you and your daughters. Look, this was the depravity of your sister Sodom, pride, fullness of bread, and abundance of idleness was in her and in her daughters, neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor and needy. And they were haughty, and committed abomination before me, therefore I took them away as I saw good. Neither has Samaria committed half of your sins, but you have multiplied your abominations more than they, and have justified your sisters in all your abominations that you have done. You also that has judged your sisters, bear your own shame for your sins that you have committed more detestable than they are more righteous than you, yes, be you confounded also, and bear your shame, in that you have justified your sisters. And I have turned back to their captivity, the captivity of Sodom and her daughters, and the captivity of Samaria and her daughters, and the captivity of your captives in their midst, so that you do bear your shame, and have been ashamed of all that you have done, in your comforting them. When your sisters, Sodom and her daughters will return to their former estate, and Samaria and her daughters will return to their former estate, then you and your daughters will return to your former estate. Because your sister Sodom was not mentioned by your mouth in the day of your pride. Before your wickedness was discovered, as at the time of your scorn from the daughters of Syria, and all that are around her, the daughters of the Philistines that despise you all around. You have borne your lewdness and your detestable things, declares Yhwh. Because this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, I will even deal with you as you have done, which has despised the oath in breaking the covenant. Nevertheless I will remember my covenant with you in the days of your youth, and I will establish to you an age-lasting covenant. Then you will remember your ways and be ashamed, when you will receive your sisters, your elder and your younger, and I will give them to you for daughters, but not because of your covenant. And I will establish my covenant with you, and you will know that I am Yhwh, that you may remember, and be ashamed, and never open your mouth any more because of your reproach, in that I have accepted a propitiatory covering for you, as to all that you have done, declares Adonai Yhwh. And the word of Yhwh came to me saying, Son of man, put out a riddle and speak a parable to the house of Israel, and say, So says Adonai Yhwh, a great eagle with great wings, long-winged, full of feathers that had variegated colors, came to Lebanon and took the highest branch of the cedar. He cropped off the top of his young twigs, and carried it into a land of trading. He set it in a city of merchants. He also took of the seed of the land, and planted it in a fruitful field. He placed it by great waters, and set it as a willow tree. And it grew, and became a spreading vine of low stature, whose branches turned toward him, and its roots were under him. So it became a vine, and acquired branches and shot forth sprigs. There was also another great eagle with great wings and many feathers, and see, this vine did bend her roots toward him, and shot forth her branches toward him so that he might water it by the furrows of her plantation. It was planted in a good soil by great waters so that it might bear branches, and that it might bear fruit, that it might be a splendid vine. Say now, this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, will it prosper? Will he not pull up the roots, and cut off the fruit so that it withers? It will wither in all the leaves of her spring, even without great power or many people to pluck it up by its roots. Yes, now look, being planted, will it prosper? Will it not wither, when the east wind strikes it? It will wither in the furrows where it grew. Moreover the word of Yhwh came to me saying, Say now to the rebellious house, know you not what these things mean? Tell them, Behold, the king of Babylon had come to Jerusalem, and has captured the king and the chiefs, and led them with him to Babylon, and has taken of the king's seed, and made a treaty with him, and has taken an oath of him. He has also captured the mighty of the land, that the kingdom might be base so that it might not lift itself up, but that by keeping of his treaty it might stand. But he rebelled against him in sending his ambassadors into Egypt, that they might give him horses and many people. Will he prosper? Will he escape that does such things? Or will he break the treaty and be delivered? As I live, says Adonai Yhwh, certainly in the place where the king resides that made him king, whose oath he despised, and whose treaty he broke, even with him in the center of Babylon he will die. Neither will Pharaoh with his mighty army and great company make for him in the war, by casting up mounds and building forts, to cut off many persons, seeing he despised the oath by breaking the treaty, when lo, he had given his hand and has done all these things, he will not escape. Therefore this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, As I live, certainly my oath that he has despised, and my covenant that he has broken, even it will I repay upon his own head. And I will spread my net upon him, and he will be caught in my snare, and I will bring him to Babylon, and will plead with him there for his trespass that he has trespassed against me. And all his fugitives with all his bands will fall by the sword, and they that remain will be scattered toward all winds, and you will know that I Yhwh have spoken it. This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, I will also take of the highest branch of the high cedar and will set it, I will crop off from the top of his young twigs a tender one, and will plant it on a mountain high and lofty, in the mountain of the height of Israel I will plant it, and it will bear boughs, and bear fruit, and be a splendid cedar, and under it will live all flying creatures of every wing, in the shadow of its branches will they reside. And all the trees of the field will know that I Yhwh have brought down the high tree, have exalted the low tree, have dried up the green tree and have made the dry tree to flourish. I Yhwh have spoken and have done it. The word of Yhwh came to me again saying, What do you mean by using this proverb concerning the land of Israel, saying, The fathers have eaten sour grapes, and the children's teeth are set on edge? As I live, declares Adonai Yhwh, you will not have occasion any more to use this proverb in Israel. Observe, all people are mine, as the life of the father, so also the life of the son is mine. The person that sins, they will die. But if a man is just, and does what is lawful and right, and has not eaten upon the mountains, neither has lifted up his eyes to the idols of the house of Israel, neither has defiled his neighbor's wife, neither has come near to a menstruous woman, and has not oppressed any, but has restored to the debtor his pledge, has spoiled none by violence, has given his food to the hungry and has covered the naked with a garment, he that has not given out on interest, neither has taken any increase, that has withdrawn his hand from injustice, has executed true judgment between man and man, has walked in my statutes and has observed my judgments, to deal truly, he is just, he will surely live, says Adonai Yhwh. And, he has begotten a son, a burglar, a shedder of blood, and he has made a brother of one of these. Whereas, he, none of those other things, does, for even on the mountains he has eaten, and the wife of his neighbor he has defiled. Has oppressed the poor and needy, has spoiled by violence, has not restored the pledge, and has lifted up his eyes to the idols, has committed abomination, has given out on interest, and has taken increase, will he then live? He will not live, he has done all these abominations, he will certainly die, his blood will be on him. Now lo, if he genders a son, that sees all his dad's sins that he has done, and considers, and does not do likewise, that has not eaten on the mountains, neither has lifted up his eyes to the idols of the house of Israel, has not defiled his neighbor's wife, neither has oppressed any, has not withheld the pledge, neither has spoiled by violence, but has given his food to the hungry, and has covered the naked with a garment, that has taken off his hand from the poor, that has not received interest nor increase, has executed my judgments, has walked in my statutes, he will not die for the depravity of his dad, he will certainly live. As for his dad, because he cruelly oppressed, spoiled his brother by violence, and did what is not good among his people, lo, even he will die in his depravity. Still you say, why? Does not the son bear the depravity of the dad? When the son has done what is lawful and right, and has observed all my statutes and has done them, he will certainly live. The person that sins, they will die. The son will not bear the depravity of the dad, neither will the dad bear the depravity of the son. The righteousness of the righteous will be on him, and the wickedness of the wicked will be on him. But if the wicked will turn from all his sins that he has committed, and observes all my statutes, and does what is lawful and right, he will certainly live, he will not die. All his transgressions that he has committed, they will not be mentioned to him, in his righteousness that he has done he will live. Have I any pleasure at all that the wicked should die? Says Adonai Yhwh, and not that he should turn back from his ways, and live? But when the righteous turns away from his righteousness, and commits depravity, and does according to all the abominations that the wicked does, will he live? All his righteousness that he has done will not be mentioned, in his trespass that he has trespassed, and in his sin that he has sinned, in them will he die. Still you say, the way of Adonai is not equal. Hear now, O house of Israel, is not my way equal? Are not your ways unequal? When a righteous person turns away from his righteousness, and commits depravity and dies, in them, for his depravity that he has done will he die. Again, when the wicked turns away from his wickedness that he has committed and does what is lawful and right, he will save his person alive. Because he considers and turns away from all his transgressions that he has committed, he will certainly live, he will not die. Still the house of Israel says, the way of Adonai is not equal. O house of Israel, are not my ways equal? Are not your ways unequal? Therefore I will judge you, O house of Israel, everyone according to his ways, declares Adonai Yhwh. Change one's mind, and turn yourselves from all your transgressions, so depravity will not be your ruin. Cast away from yourself all your transgressions, whereby you have transgressed, and make yourself a new heart and a new spirit, because why will you die, O house of Israel? Because I have no pleasure in the death of him that dies, says Adonai Yhwh, therefore turn back yourselves and remain alive. Moreover take yourself up a lamentation for the chiefs of Israel, and say, what is your mother? A lioness, she lay down among lions, she nourished her cubs among young lions. And she brought up one of her cubs, it became a young lion and it learned to catch the prey, it devoured men. The nations also heard of him, he was taken in their pit, and they brought him with chains to the land of Egypt. Now when she saw that she had waited and her hope was lost, then she took another of her cubs, and made him a young lion. And he went up and down among the lions, he became a young lion and learned to catch the prey and devoured men. And he knew their desolate palaces, and he laid waste their cities, and the land was desolate and its fullness, by the sound of his roaring. Then the nations set against him on every side from the provinces, and spread their net over him, he was taken in their pit. And they put him in ward in chains, and brought him to the king of Babylon, they brought him into the stronghold, that his voice should no more be heard upon the mountains of Israel. Your mother was like a vine in your vineyard, planted by the waters, she was fruitful and full of branches by reason of many waters. And she had strong rods for the scepters of them that ruled, and her stature was exalted among the thick branches, and she appeared in her height with the multitude of her branches. But she was plucked up in fury, she was cast down to the ground, and the east wind dried up her fruit, her strong rods were broken and withered, the fire consumed them. And now she is planted in the wilderness, in a dry and thirsty ground. And fire has gone out of a rod of her branches that has devoured her fruit, so that she has no strong rod to be a scepter to rule. This is a lamentation, and will be for a dirge. And it came to pass in the 7th year, in the 5th month, on the 10th day of the month, that some of the elders of Israel came to inquire of Yhwh, and sat before me. Then came the word of Yhwh to me, saying, Son of man, speak to the elders of Israel and say to them, This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, Are you coming to inquire of me? As I live, says Adonai Yhwh, I will not be inquired of by you. Will you judge them, son of man, will you judge them? Cause them to know the abominations of their ancestors, and say to them, This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, in the day when I chose Israel, and lifted up my hand to the seed of the house of Jacob, and made myself known to them in the land of Egypt, when I lifted up my hand to them saying, I am Yhwh Elohim, in the day that I lifted up my hand to them, to bring them out of the land of Egypt into a land that I had selected for them, flowing with milk and honey, that is the glory of all lands. Then I said to them, Cast away everyone the abominations of your eyes, and defile not yourselves with the idols of Egypt, I am Yhwh your Elohim. But they rebelled against me and would not listen to me, they did not everyone cast away the abominations of their eyes, neither did they forsake the idols of Egypt. Then I said, I will pour out my fury upon them, to accomplish my anger against them in the middle of the land of Egypt. And I do it for my name's sake, not to pollute it before the eyes of the nations, in whose midst they are, before whose eyes I became known to them, to bring them out of the land of Egypt. Therefore I caused them to go out of the land of Egypt, and brought them into the uninhabited land. And I gave them my statutes, and showed them my judgments, which if a person will observe, they will even live in them. Moreover I also gave them my Sabbaths, to be a sign between me and them, so that they might know that I am Yhwh that consecrates them. But the house of Israel rebelled against me in the uninhabited land, they walked not in my statutes, and they despised my judgments, which if a person will observe, they will even live in them. And my Sabbaths they greatly polluted. Then I said, I would pour out my fury on them in the uninhabited land, to consume them. But I acted for my name's sake, that it should not be desecrated before the heathen, in whose sight I brought them out. Yet I also lifted up my hand to them in the uninhabited land, that I would not bring them into the land that I had given them, flowing with milk and honey, which is the glory of all lands, because they despised my judgments and walked not in my statutes, but desecrated my Sabbaths, because their heart went after their idols. Nevertheless I spared them from destroying them, neither did I make an end of them in the uninhabited land. But I said to their children in the wilderness, Do not walk in the statutes of your ancestors, neither observe their judgments, nor defile yourselves with their idols. I am Yhwh Elohim, walk in my statutes, and observe my judgments, and institute them, and consecrate my Sabbaths, and they will be a sign between me and you, so that you may know that I am Yhwh Elohim. Notwithstanding the children rebelled against me, they walked not in my statutes, neither observed my judgments to institute them, which if a person does, they will even live in them. They desecrated my Sabbaths. Then I said, I would pour out my fury on them, to accomplish my anger against them in the wilderness. Nevertheless I withdrew my hand, and acted for my name's sake, that it should not be desecrated in the sight of the heathen, in whose sight I brought them out. I lifted up my hand to them also in the wilderness, that I would scatter them among the heathen, and disperse them throughout the countries, because they had not executed my judgments, but had despised my statutes, and had desecrated my Sabbaths, and their eyes were after their forefathers' idols. Therefore I gave them also statutes that were not good, and judgments in which they should not live, and I defiled them in their own gifts, in that they caused to pass through the fire all that opens the womb, so that I might make them desolate, to the end that they might know that I am Yhwh. Therefore, Son of man, speak to the house of Israel and say to them, This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, Still in this your forefathers have blasphemed me, in that they have committed a trespass against me. Because when I had brought them into the land in which I lifted up my hand to give it to them, then they saw every high hill, and all the thick trees, and they offered there their sacrifices, and there they presented the provocation of their offering. There they also constituted their tranquilizing fragrance, and poured out there their drink offerings. Then I said to them, What is the worship place where you go? And its name is called Bamah to this day. Therefore say to the house of Israel, This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, Are you defiled after the manner of your forefathers? And commit prostitution after their abominations? Because when you offer your gifts, when you make your sons to pass through the fire, you desecrate yourselves with all your idols, even to this day, and will I be inquired of, through Urim-Thummim, by you, O house of Israel? As I live, declares Adonai Yhwh, I will not be inquired of, through Urim-Thummim, by you. And what comes into your mind will not be at all, that you say, We will be as the heathen, as the families of the countries, to serve wood and stone. As I live, declares Adonai Yhwh, certainly with a mighty hand and with a stretched out arm, and with fury poured out, I will become king over you, and I will bring you out from the people, and will gather you out of the countries where you are scattered, with a mighty hand and with a stretched out arm, and with fury poured out. And I will bring you into the wilderness of the people, and there I will plead with you face to face. The same as I pleaded with your forefathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt, so I will plead with you, declares Adonai Yhwh. And I will cause you to pass under the rod, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant, and I will purge out from among you the rebels, and those that revolt against me, I will bring them out of the country where they sojourn, and they will not enter into the land of Israel, and you will know that I am YHWH. As for you, O house of Israel, this is what Adonai YHWH declares, go ye now, serve you everyone as idols, and hereafter also, if you will not listen to me, but later you will desecrate my holy name no more with your gifts, and with your idols. Because in my holy mountain, in the mountain of the height of Israel, says Adonai YHWH, there will all the house of Israel, all of them in the land, serve me. There I will accept them, and there I will require your offerings, and the first fruits of your oblations, with all your sacred things. I will accept you with your tranquilizing fragrance, when I bring you out from the people, and gathered you out of the countries where you have been scattered, and I will be consecrated in you before the heathen. And you will know that I am YHWH, when I will bring you into the land of Israel, into the country for which I lifted up my hand to give it to your forefathers. And there will you remember your ways, and all your practices, in which you have become unclean, and you will loathe yourselves in your own sight for all your badness that you have accomplished. And you have known that I am YHWH, in my dealing with you for my name's sake, not according to your bad ways, and according to your corrupt practices, O house of Israel, an affirmation of Adonai YHWH. Moreover the word of YHWH came to me saying, Son of man, set your face toward the south, and drop your word toward the south, and prophesy against the forest of the south field, and say to the forest of the south, hear the word of YHWH, this is what Adonai YHWH declares, look, I will kindle a fire in you and it will devour every green tree in you, and every dry tree, the flaming flame will not be quenched, and all faces from the south to the north will be burnt therein. And all flesh will see that I YHWH have kindled it, it will not be quenched. Then I said, Ah Adonai YHWH. They say of me, does he not speak parables? And the word of YHWH came to me saying, Son of man, set your face toward Jerusalem, and drop your word toward the sacred place and prophesy against the land of Israel, and say to the land of Israel, this is what YHWH declares, look, I am against you and will draw out my sword from its sheath, and will cut off from you the righteous and the wicked. Seeing then that I will cut off from you the righteous and the wicked, therefore will my sword go out of its sheath against all flesh from the south to the north, that all flesh may know that I, YHWH, have drawn out my sword from its sheath, it will not return any more. Groan therefore, you son of man, with the breaking of your loins, and with bitterness sigh before their eyes. And it will be when they say to you, why do you groan? That you will answer, because of the news, because it arrives and every heart will melt, and all hands will be feeble, and every spirit will faint, and all knees will be weak as water. Watch, it arrives, and will be brought to pass declares Adonai YHWH. Again the word of YHWH came to me saying, Son of man, prophesy and say, this is what YHWH declares, say, a sword is sharpened, and also polished, it is sharpened to make a slaughter, it is polished that it may glitter, should we then make mirth? It rejects the staff of my son, as every tree. And he has given it to be polished so that it may be handled, this sword is sharpened, and it is polished, to give it into the hand of the slayer. Cry and wail, Son of man, because it will be upon my people, it will be upon all the chiefs of Israel, terrors by reason of the sword will be upon my people, slap therefore on your sides. Because it is a trial, and what if the sword contemn even the rod? It will be no more declares Adonai YHWH. You therefore, Son of man, prophesy and hit your hands together, and let the sword be doubled the third time, the sword of the slain, it is the sword of the great men that are killed that enter into their chambers. I have set the point of the sword against all their gates so that their heart may faint, and their stumbling blocks are multiplied. Ah! It is made as the flashing of arrowheads, it is sharpened up for the slaughter. Take possession of the right, place yourself at the left, where your face is appointed. I will also hit my hands together, and I will cause my fury to rest, I YHWH have declared it. The word of YHWH came to me again saying, also, you son of man, appoint yourself 2 ways, that the sword of the king of Babylon may come, let the 2 of them come out of one land, and let there be a pillar at the top of the road. Appoint a way, that the sword may come to Rabbath of the Ammonites, and to Judah and Jerusalem the fortified. Because the king of Babylon stood at the intersection of the road, at the head of the 2 ways, to use divination, he made his arrows swift, he inquired with teraphim, he inspected in the liver. At his right hand was the divination for Jerusalem, to appoint captains, to open the mouth in the slaughter, to lift up the voice with shouting, to appoint battering rams against the gates, to cast a mound and to build a siege wall. And it will be to them as a false divination in their sight, to them that have sworn oaths, but he will call to remembrance the depravity, that they may be captured. Therefore this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, because you have made your depravity to be remembered, in that your rebellions are uncovered, so that in all your practices your sins do appear, because, I say, that you are come to remembrance, you will be captured with the hand. And you, profane wicked chief of Israel, whose day has come, when depravity will have an end, this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, remove the turban and take off the crown, this will not be the same, exalt him that is low, and abase him that is high. I will overturn it, and it will be no more, until he comes whose right it is, and I will give it to him. And you, son of man, prophesy and say, this is what Adonai Yhwh declares concerning the Ammonites, and concerning their scorn, even say you, the sword is drawn, because for the slaughter it is polished, to devour because of its flashing. Your visions are a vain thing and divining for you of a lie, to put you on the necks of the wounded of the wicked, whose day had come, in the time of the depravity of the end. Will I cause it to return into its sheath? I will judge you in the standing place where you were created, in the land of your origin. And I will pour out my anger on you, I will blow against you in the supernatural fire of my outburst, and deliver you into the hand of brutish men, and skillful to destroy. You will be for fuel to the fire, your blood will be in the midst of the land, you will be no more remembered, because I, Yhwh, have spoken it. Moreover the word of Yhwh came to me saying, Now, you son of man, will you judge the bloody city? Yes, you will show her all her abominations. Then you will say, this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, the city sheds blood in the middle of it, that her time may come, and makes idols against herself to defile herself. You are become guilty in your blood so that you have shed, and have defiled yourself in your idols that you have fashioned. And you have caused your days to draw near and are gathered up in your lifetime, therefore have I made you a scorn to the heathen, and a mocking to all countries. Those that are near and those that are far from you, will mock you that are unclean and in panic. Lo, chiefs of Israel, each according to his arm have been in you to shed blood. Dad and mother made light of in you, to a sojourner they dealt oppressively among you, fatherless and widow they oppressed in you. You have despised my sacred places, and have profaned my Sabbaths. In you are men that carry tales to shed blood, and in you they eat upon the mountains, among you they commit evil devices. In you have they discovered their father's nakedness, in you have they humbled her that was set apart for uncleanness. And one has committed disgusting things with his neighbor's woman, and another has lewdly defiled his daughter-in-law, and another in you has humiliated, sexually, his sister, his dad's daughter. In you have they taken gifts to shed blood, you have taken interest in increase, and you have greedily gained of your neighbors by extortion, and have forgotten me declares Adonai Yhwh. Look, therefore I have struck my hand at your dishonest gain that you have made, and at your blood that has been among you. Can your heart endure, or can your hands be strong, in the days that I will deal with you? I, Yhwh, have spoken it and will do it. And I will scatter you among the heathen, and disperse you in the countries, and will end your uncleanness. And you will desecrate yourself in the sight of the nations, and you will know that I am Yhwh. Then the word of Yhwh came to me saying, Son of man, the house of Israel has to me become dross, all they are bronze, tin, iron, and lead, in the center of the furnace, they are even the dross of silver. Therefore this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, because you are all become dross, take note therefore, I will gather you into the center of Jerusalem. As they gather silver, bronze, iron, lead, and tin, into the center of the furnace, to blow the fire on it, to melt it, so I will gather you in my anger and in my fury, and I will leave you there, and melt you down. Yes, I will gather you and blow on you in the supernatural fire of my outburst, and you will be melted in the center thereof. As silver is melted in the center of the furnace, so will you be melted in the center thereof, and you will know that I, Yhwh, have poured out my fury on you. Then the word of Yhwh came to me saying, Son of man, say to her, You are the land that is not cleansed, nor rained upon in the day of anger. There is a conspiracy of her prophets among them, like a roaring lion ravening the prey, they have devoured people, they have taken the treasure and precious things, they have made her many widows among her. Her priests have violated my law, and have desecrated my sacred place, they have put no difference between the sacred and common, neither have they shown difference between the unclean and the clean, and have hidden their eyes from my Sabbaths, and I am desecrated among them. Her chiefs among them are like wolves ravening the prey, to shed blood, and to destroy lives, to get dishonest gain. And her prophets have daubed them with untested mortar, seeing vanity and divining lies to them saying, This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, when Yhwh has not spoken. The people of the land have used oppression and exercised robbery, and have vexed the poor and needy, yes, they have oppressed the foreigner wrongfully. And I sought for a man among them, that should build up the wall, and stand in the gap before me for the land, that I should not destroy it, but I found none. Therefore I have poured out my anger upon them, I have consumed them with the supernatural fire of my outburst, their own way have I repaid upon their heads, declares Adonai Yhwh. The word of Yhwh came again to me saying, Son of man, there were 2 women, the daughters of one mother, and they committed prostitution in Egypt, they committed prostitution in their youth. There they have bruised their breasts, and there they have dealt with the loves of their virginity. And the names of them were Aholah the elder, and Aholibah her sister, and they were mine, and they gendered sons and daughters. These were their designated names, Samaria is Aholah, and Jerusalem Aholibah. And Aholah played the prostitute when she was mine, and she lusted on her lovers, on the Assyrians her neighbors, that were clothed with blue, captains and rulers, all of them desirable young men, horsemen riding on horses. So she committed her prostitution with them, with all them that were the chosen men of Assyria, and with all on whom she lusted, with all their idols she defiled herself. Neither left she her prostitution brought from Egypt, because in her youth they lay with her, and they bruised the breasts of her virginity, and poured their prostitution upon her. Therefore I have delivered her into the hand of her lovers, into the hand of the Assyrians, on whom she lusted. These discovered her nakedness, they took her sons and her daughters and killed her with the sword, and she became famous among women, because they had executed judgment on her. And when her sister Aholibah saw this, she was more corrupt in her lustfulness than she, and in her prostitution more than her sister in her whoring. She lusted on the Assyrians her neighbors, captains and rulers clothed most gorgeously, horsemen riding on horses, all of them desirable young men. Then I saw that she was defiled so that they took both one way, and that she increased her prostitution, because when she saw men engraved upon the wall, the images of the Chaldeans engraved with vermilion, red color, belted with girdles upon their hips, exceeding in dyed attire on their heads, all of them princes to look to, after the manner of the Babylonians of Chaldea, the land of their origin, and as soon as she saw them with her eyes, she lusted on them, and sent messengers to them into Chaldea. And the Babylonians came to her into the bed of love, and they defiled her with their prostitution, and she was polluted with them, and her mind was alienated from them. So she discovered her prostitution, and discovered her nakedness, then my mind was alienated from her, like as my mind was alienated from her sister. Still she multiplied her prostitution, in calling to remembrance the days of her youth, in which she had played the prostitute in the land of Egypt. Because she lusted on their concubines, whose flesh is as the flesh of male donkeys, and whose ejaculation is like the ejaculation of horses. You looked after the lewdness of your youth, in dealing out of Egypt your loves, for the sake of the breasts of your youth. Therefore, O Aholibah, this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, Look, I will raise up your lovers against you, from whom your mind is alienated, and I will bring them against you on every side, the Babylonians, and all the Chaldeans, Pakad, Shoa, Koa, and all the Assyrians with them, all of them desirable young men, captains and rulers, great lords and renowned, all of them riding on horses. And they will come against you with chariots, wagons, wheels, and with a company of people that will set against you buckler and shield and helmet all around, and I will set judgment before them, and they will judge you according to their judgments. Then I will set my jealousy against you, and they will deal furiously with you, they will take away your nose and your ears. And your posterity will fall by the sword, they will take your sons and your daughters, and your latter times will be devoured by supernatural fire. They will also strip you out of your clothes, and take away your fair jewels. So will I make your lewdness to cease from you, and your prostitution brought from the land of Egypt, so that you will not lift up your eyes to them, nor remember Egypt any more. Because this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, Look, I will deliver you into the hand of them who you hate, into the hand of them from who your mind is alienated, and they will deal with you hatefully, and will remove all your labor, and will leave you naked and bare, and the nakedness of your prostitution will be uncovered, both your lewdness and your whoring. I will do these things to you, because you have gone a whoring after the heathen, and because you have become unclean with their idols. You have walked in the way of your sister, therefore I will give her cup into your hand. This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, You will drink of your sister's cup deep and large, you will be laughed to scorn and had in derision, it contains much. You will be filled with drunkenness and sorrow, with the cup of appalling and desolation, with the cup of your sister Samaria. You will even drink it and draw it off, and you will break the potsherds, and pluck off your own breasts, because I have spoken it, declares Adonai Yhwh. Therefore this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, because you have forgotten me, and cast me behind your back, therefore bear you also your lewdness and your prostitution. Yhwh also said to me, Son of man, will you judge Aholah and Aholibah? Yes, declare to them their abominations, that they have committed adultery, and blood is in their hands, and with their idols have they committed adultery, and have also caused their sons, who they engendered to me, to pass for them through the fire, to devour them. Moreover this they have done to me, they have defiled my sacred place in the same day, and have profaned my Sabbaths. Because when they had killed their children to their idols, then they came the same day into my sacred place to profane it, and lo, so have they done in the middle of my house. And furthermore, that you have sent for men to come from far, to who a messenger was sent, and lo, they came, for who you did wash yourself, painted your eyes, and decked yourself with ornaments, and sat upon a stately bed, and a table prepared before it, and there you have set my incense and my oil. And a voice of a multitude being at ease was with her, and with the men of the common sort were brought Sabaeans from the wilderness, which put bracelets on their hands, and beautiful crowns on their heads. Then I said to her that was old in adulteries, will they now commit prostitution with her, and she with them? Still they went into her, as they go into a woman that plays the whore, so went they into Aholah and to Aholibah, the lewd women. And the righteous men, they will judge them after the manner of adulteresses, and after the manner of women that shed blood, because they are adulteresses, and blood is in their hands. Because this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, I will bring up a company on them, and will give them to be removed and plundered. And the company will stone them with stones, and dispatch them with their swords, they will slay their sons and their daughters, and burn up their houses with fire. So will I cause lewdness to cease out of the land, that all women may be taught not to do after your licentiousness. And they will repay your lewdness upon you, and you will bear the sins of your idols, and you will know that I am Adonai Yhwh. Again in the 9th year, in the 10th month, on the 10th day of the month, the word of Yhwh came to me saying, Son of man, write the name of the day, even of this same day, the king of Babylon set himself against Jerusalem this same day. And utter a parable to the rebellious house and say to them, This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, put on the pot, to set it on, and also pour water into it, gather the pieces into it, even every good piece, the thigh and the shoulder, fill it with the choice bones. Take the choice of the flock, and burn also the bones under it, and make it boil well, and let them cook the bones of it therein. Therefore this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, Woe to the bloody city, to the pot whose scum is therein, and whose scum has not gone out of it. Bring it out piece by piece, let no pebbles fall on it. Because her blood is in the middle of her, she set it upon the top of a rock, she poured it not on the ground, to cover it with dust, that it might cause fury to come up to take vengeance. I have set her blood on the top of a rock, that it should not be covered. Therefore this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, Woe to the bloody city. I will even make the pile for fire great. Heap on wood, kindle the fire, consume the flesh, spice it well and let the bones be burnt. Then set it empty on its coals, that the bronze of it may be hot, and may burn, and that the filthiness of it may be melted in it so that the scum of it may be consumed. She has wearied herself with lies, and her great scum went not out of her, her scum will be in the fire. In your filthiness is lewdness, because I have purged you, and you were not purged, you will not be purged from your filthiness any more, until I have caused my fury to rest on you. I, Yhwh have spoken it, it will come to pass and I will do it, I will not go back, neither will I spare, neither will I change my mind. According to your ways and according to your practices, will they judge you, declares Adonai Yhwh. Also the word of Yhwh came to me saying, Son of man, look, I take away from you the desire of your eyes with a stroke, yet neither will you mourn nor weep, neither will your tears run down. Cease to groan, for the dead you will make no mourning, your bonnet bind on you and your shoes you will put on your feet, and you will not cover over the upper lip, and bread of men you will not eat. So I spoke to the people in the morning, and at sunset my woman died, and I did at sunrise as I was commanded. And the people said to me, Will you not tell us what these things are to us, that you do so? Then I answered them, The word of Yhwh came to me saying, Speak to the house of Israel, this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, Look, I will wound my sacred place, the excellency of your strength, the desire of your eyes, and what your people pity, and your sons and your daughters who you have left will fall by the sword. And you will do as I have done, you will not cover your lips, nor eat the bread of men. And your turban will be on your heads, and your shoes on your feet, you will not mourn nor weep, but you will pine away for your depravities, and mourn one toward another. So Ezekiel is to you a sign, according to all that he has done will you do, and when this comes, you will know that I am Adonai Yhwh. Also, you son of man, will it not be in the day when I take from them their strength, the joy of their glory, the desire of their eyes and on what they set their minds, their sons and their daughters, that he that escapes in that day will come to you, to cause you to hear it with your ears? In that day opened is your mouth with the escaped, and you speak, and are not silent any more, and you have been to them for a type. And they have known that I am YHWH. The word of YHWH came again to me saying, Son of man, set your face against the Ammonites and prophesy against them, and say to the Ammonites, Hear the word of Adonai YHWH. This is what Adonai YHWH declares, because you said, Aha, against my sacred place, when it was desecrated. And against the land of Israel when it was desolate, and against the house of Judah, when they went into captivity. Take note, therefore I will deliver you to the men of the east for a possession, and they will set their palaces in you, and make their dwellings in you, they will eat your fruit and they will drink your milk. And I will make Rabbah a stable for camels, and the Ammonites a couching place for flocks, and you will know that I am YHWH. Because this is what Adonai YHWH declares, because you have clapped your hands, and stamped with the feet, and rejoiced in heart with all your despite against the land of Israel. Observe, I will stretch out my hand on you and will deliver you for a plunder to the heathen. And I will cut you off from the people, and I will cause you to perish out of the countries, I will destroy you, and you will know that I am YHWH. This is what Adonai YHWH declares, because that Moab and Seir do say, Look, the house of Judah has become like all the heathen, therefore look, I will open the side of Moab from the cities, from his cities that are on his frontiers, the glory of the country, Beth Yeshimot, Bamian, and Kiriathaim, to the men of the east with the Ammonites, and will give them in possession, that the Ammonites may not be remembered among the nations. And I will execute judgments on Moab, and they will know that I am YHWH. This is what Adonai YHWH declares, because that Edom has dealt against the house of Judah by taking vengeance, and has greatly offended and revenged himself upon them. Therefore this is what Adonai YHWH declares, I will also stretch out my hand on Edom, and will cut off man and animal from it, and I will make it desolate from Teman, and they of Dedan will fall by the sword. And I will lay my vengeance on Edom by the hand of my people Israel, and they will do in Edom according to my anger and according to my fury, and they will know my vengeance declares Adonai YHWH. This is what Adonai YHWH declares, because the Philistines have dealt by revenge, and have taken vengeance with a heart of contempt, to destroy it for the old hatred. Therefore this is what Adonai YHWH declares, Look, I will stretch out my hand upon the Philistines, and I will cut off the Cherethims, executioners, and destroy the descendants of the seacoast. And I will execute great vengeance on them with furious rebukes, and they will know that I am YHWH, when I will lay my vengeance on them. Then it came to pass in the 11th year, on the first day of the month, that the word of YHWH came to me saying, Son of man, because Tyrus has said against Jerusalem, Aha, she is broken that was the gates of the people, she has turned to me, I will be replenished, now she is laid waste, therefore this is what Adonai YHWH declares, Look, I am against you, O Tyrus, and will cause many nations to come up against you, as the sea causes its waves to come up. And they will destroy the walls of Tyrus, and break down her towers, I will also scrape her dust from her and make her like the top of a rock. It will be a place for the spreading of nets in the center of the sea, because I have spoken it, declares Adonai YHWH, and it will become a plunder to the nations. And her daughters that are in the field will be killed by the sword, and they will know that I am YHWH. Because this is what Adonai YHWH declares, Look, I will bring on Tyrus Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon, a king of kings from the north, with horses and with chariots, and with horsemen and companies, and much people. He will kill with the sword your daughters in the field, and he will make a siege wall against you, cast a mound against you and lift up the buckler against you. And he will set battering rams of war against your walls, and with his axes he will break down your towers. By reason of the abundance of his horses their dust will cover you. Your walls will shake at the sound of the horsemen and of the wheels, and of the chariots, when he will enter into your gates, as men enter into a city where there is made a breach. With the hoofs of his horses will he tread down all your streets, he will kill your people by the sword, and your strong garrisons will go down to the ground. And they will make a booty of your riches, and make a prey of your merchandise, and they will break down your walls, and destroy your pleasant houses, and they will lay your stones and your timber and your dust in the midst of the water. And I will cause the sound of your songs to cease, and the sound of your lyre will be no more heard. And I will make you like the top of a rock, you will be a place to spread nets upon, you will be built no more, because I YHWH have spoken it, declares Adonai YHWH. This is what Adonai YHWH says to Tyrus, Will not the isle shake at the sound of your fall, when the wounded cry, when the slaughter is made in the midst of you? Then all the princes of the sea will come down from their thrones, and lay away their robes, and put off their embroidered garments, they will clothe themselves with trembling, they will sit on the ground and will tremble at every moment, and be appalled at you. And they will take up a lamentation for you and say to you, how are you destroyed that was inhabited of seafaring men, the renowned city that was strong in the sea, she and her inhabitants that caused their terror to be on all that haunted. Now will the isles tremble in the day of your fall, yes, the isles that are in the sea will be troubled at your departure. Because this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, when I will make you a desolate city, like the cities that are not inhabited, when I will bring up the deep upon you, and great waters will cover you, when I will bring you down with them that descend into the pit, with the people of olden times, and will set you in the low parts of the earth, in places desolate of old, with them that go down to the pit so that you are not inhabited. And I will set glory in the land of the living, I will make you a terror and you will exist no more, though you are sought for, still will you never be found again, declares Adonai Yhwh. The word of Yhwh came again to me saying, Now, you son of man, take up a dirge for Tyrus, and say to Tyrus, O you that are situated at the entry of the sea, which are a merchant of the people for many isles, this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, O Tyrus, you have said, I am of perfect beauty. Your borders are in the middle of the seas, your builders have perfected your beauty. They have made all your ship boards of fir trees of Senir, they have taken cedars from Lebanon to make masts for you. Of the oaks of Bashan have they made your oars, the company of the Ashurites have made your benches of ivory, brought out of the isles of Kittim. Fine linen with embroidered work from Egypt was what you spread out to be your sail, blue and purple from the isles of Elisha was what covered you. The inhabitants of Zidon and Arvad were your mariners, your wise men, O Tyrus, that were in you, were your pilots. Elders of Gebal and its wise men have been in you, strengthening your breach, all ships of the sea and their mariners have been in you to trade with your merchandise. They of Persia and of Lud and of Phut were in your army, your men of war, they hanged the shield and helmet in you, they set out your ornaments. The men of Arvad with your army were upon your walls all around, and the Gammadims were in your towers, they hanged their shields all around on your walls, they have made your beauty perfect. Tarshish was your merchant by reason of the multitude of all kinds of riches, with silver, iron, tin, and lead, they traded in your wares. Javan, Tubal, and Meshech, they were your merchants, they traded the persons of men and vessels of bronze in your market. They of the house of Togarmah traded in your wares with horses and horsemen and mules. The men of Dedan were your merchants, many isles were the merchandise of your hand, they brought you for a present, horns of ivory and ebony. Syria was your merchant by reason of the multitude of the wares of your making, they occupied in your fairs with emeralds, purple, and embroidered work, and fine linen, and coral, and agate. Judah, and the land of Israel, they were your merchants, they traded in your market wheat of Minnith, Panag, and honey, and oil, and balm. Damascus was your merchant in the multitude of the wares of your making, for the multitude of all riches, in the wine of Helbon, and white wool. Dan also and Javan going to and fro occupied in your fairs, bright iron, cassia, and calamus, were in your market. Dedan was your merchant in precious clothes for chariots. Arabia, and all the princes of Kedar, they occupied with you in lambs, rams, and goats, in these were they your merchants. The merchants of Sheba and Raamah, they were your merchants, they occupied in your fairs with chief of all spices, and with all precious stones, and gold. Haran and Cana, and Eden, the merchants of Sheba, Ashur, and Kilmad, were your merchants. These were your merchants in all sorts of things, in blue clothes and embroidered work, and in chests of rich apparel, bound with cords and made of cedar among your merchandise. The ships of Tarshish did sing of you in your market, and you were replenished and made very glorious in the midst of the seas. Your rowers have brought you into great waters, the east wind has broken you in the midst of the seas. Your wealth and your wares, your merchandise, your mariners and your pilots, strengtheners of your breach and the traders of your merchandise, and all your men of war who are in you, and in all your assembly that is among you, fall into the heart of the seas in the day of your fall. The suburbs will shake at the sound of the cry of your pilots. And all that handle the oar, the mariners, and all the pilots of the sea, will come down from their ships, they will stand on the land, and will cause their voice to be heard against you, and will cry bitterly and will cast up dust on their heads, they will wallow themselves in the ashes, and they will make themselves bald for you and gird themselves with sackcloth, and they will weep for you with bitterness of heart and bitter wailing. And in their wailing they will take up a dirge for you and wail over you saying, What city is like Tyrus, like the destroyed in the center of the sea? When your wares went out of the seas, you filled many people, you did enrich the kings of the earth with the multitude of your riches and of your merchandise. At the time when you will be broken by the seas in the depths of the waters, your merchandise and all your company among you will fall. All the inhabitants of the isles will be appalled at you and their kings will be terrified with horror, they will have troubled faces. The merchants among the people will hiss at you, you will be a terror and never will exist again. The word of YHWH came again to me saying, Son of man, say to the prince of Tyrus, this is what Adonai YHWH declares, because your heart is lifted up and you have said, I am an Elohim, I sit in the seat of Elohim, in the center of the seas, still you are a man, and not Elohim, though you set your heart as the heart of Elohim. See, you are wiser than Daniel, there is no secret that they can hide from you. With your wisdom and with your understanding you have obtained yourself riches and have acquired gold and silver into your treasury. By your great wisdom and by your traffic you have increased your riches, and your heart is lifted up because of your riches. Therefore this is what Adonai YHWH declares, because you have set your heart as the heart of Elohim. Take note, I will bring foreigners upon you, the terrible of the nations, and they will draw their swords against the beauty of your wisdom, and they will defile your splendor. They will bring you down to the pit, and you will die the deaths of them that are killed in the center of the seas. Will you still say before him that kills you, I am Elohim? But you will be a man, and no Elohim, in the hand of him that kills you. You will die the deaths of the uncircumcised by the hand of foreigners, because I have spoken it declares Adonai YHWH. Moreover the word of YHWH came to me saying, Son of man, take up a dirge upon the king of Tyrus and say to him, this is what Adonai YHWH declares, you sealed up the sum, full of wisdom, and perfect in beauty. You have been in Eden the garden of Elohim. Every precious stone was your covering, the sardius, topaz, and the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, and the jasper, the sapphire, the emerald, and the carbuncle, and gold, the workmanship of your tambourines and of your settings, jeweler's work, was prepared in you in the day that you were created. You are the anointed guardian of Eden, cherub, that protects, and I have set you so, you are upon the holy mountain of Elohim, you have walked up and down in the middle of the stones of supernatural fire. You were wholesome in your ways from the day that you were created, until injustice was found in you. By the multitude of your merchandise they have filled the midst of you with violence, and you have sinned, therefore I will exterminate you as defiled out of the mountain of Elohim, and I will destroy you, O protecting cherub, from the middle of the stones of supernatural fire. Your heart was lifted up because of your beauty, you have corrupted your wisdom by reason of your splendor, I will cast you to the ground, I will lay you before kings so that they may see you. You have desecrated your sacred place by the multitude of your depravities, by the injustice of your trade. Therefore I will bring out a supernatural fire from among you, it will devour you, and I will bring you to ashes upon the earth in the sight of all them that see you. All they that know you among the people will be appalled at you, you will be a terror and never will you exist again. Again the word of YHWH came to me saying, Son of man, set your face against Sidon and prophesy against it and say, this is what Adonai YHWH declares, look, I am against you, O Zidon, and I will be glorified among you, and they will know that I am YHWH, when I will have executed judgments in her and will be consecrated in her. Because I will send into her plague, and blood into her streets, and the wounded will be judged among her by the sword upon her on every side, and they will know that I am YHWH. And there will be no more a pricking briar to the house of Israel, nor any grieving thorn of all that are around them, that despise them, and they will know that I am Adonai YHWH. This is what Adonai YHWH declares, when I will have gathered the house of Israel from the people among whom they are scattered, and will be consecrated in them in the sight of the heathen, then will they reside in their land that I have given to my slave Jacob. And they will live safely there, and will build houses, and plant vineyards, yes, they will live with confidence, when I have executed judgments on all those that despise them all around, and they will know that I am YHWH Elohim. In the 10th year, in the 10th month, on the 12th day of the month, the word of YHWH came to me saying, Son of man, set your face against Pharaoh king of Egypt and prophesy against him and against all Egypt, speak and say, this is what Adonai YHWH declares, look, I am against you Pharaoh king of Egypt, the great dragon that lies in the middle of his rivers that has said, my river is my own and I have made it for myself. But I will put hooks in your jaws and I will cause the fish of your rivers to stick to your scales, and I will bring you up out of the middle of your rivers, and all the fish of your rivers will stick to your scales. And I will leave you thrown into the wilderness, you and all the fish of your rivers, you will fall upon the open fields, you will not be brought together, nor gathered. I have given you for meat to the beasts of the field and to the flying creatures of the sky. And all the inhabitants of Egypt will know that I am YHWH, because they have been a staff of reed to the house of Israel. When they took hold of you by your hand, you did break, and tear all their shoulder, and when they leaned on you, you broke and made all their hips to be at a stand. Therefore this is what Adonai YHWH declares, look, I will bring a sword on you, and cut off man and animal out of you. And the land of Egypt will be desolate and waste, and they will know that I am YHWH, because he has said, the river is mine and I have made it. Look therefore, I am against you and against your rivers, and I will make the land of Egypt waste and desolate, from the tower of Syene even to the border of Ethiopia. No foot of man will pass through it, nor foot of beast will pass through it, neither will it be inhabited 40 years. And I will make the land of Egypt desolate in the midst of the countries that are desolate, and her cities among the cities that are laid waste will be desolate 40 years, and I will scatter the Egyptians among the nations, and will disperse them through the countries. Still this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, at the end of 40 years I will gather the Egyptians from the people where they were scattered, and I will turn back the captivity of Egypt, and will cause them to return to the land of Pathros, into the land of their habitation, and they will be there a base, lowly, kingdom. It will be the basest, lowest, of the kingdoms, neither will it exalt itself any more above the nations, because I will diminish them, that they will no more rule over the nations. And it will be no more the confidence of the house of Israel that brings their depravity to remembrance, when they will look after them, but they will know that I am Adonai Yhwh. And it came to pass in the 27th year, in the first month, on the first day of the month, the word of Yhwh came to me saying, Son of man, Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon caused his army to serve a great service against Tyrus. Every head was made bald, and every shoulder was peeled, still he had no wages, nor his army, for Tyrus, for the service that he had served against it. Therefore this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, Look, I will give the land of Egypt to Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon, and he will take her multitude, and take her booty, and take her prey, and it will be the wages for his army. I have given him the land of Egypt for his labor with which he served against it, because they accomplished for me, says Adonai Yhwh. In that day I will cause the horn of the house of Israel to sprout, and I will give you the opening of the mouth in their midst, and they will know that I am Yhwh. The word of Yhwh came again to me saying, Son of man, prophesy and say, This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, Wail you, woe worth the day. Because the day is near, even the day of Yhwh is near, a cloudy day, it will be the time of the heathen. And the sword will come on Egypt, and great pain will be in Ethiopia, when the slain will fall in Egypt, and they will take away her multitude, and her foundations will be broken down. Ethiopia, Libya, and Lydia, and all the mixed races of people, and Chub, and the men of the land that are in league, will fall with them by the sword. This is what Yhwh says, They also that uphold Egypt will fall, and the pride of her power will come down, from the tower of Syene will they fall in it by the sword, declares Adonai Yhwh. And they will be desolate among the countries that are desolate, and her cities will be among the cities that are wasted. And they will know that I am Yhwh, when I have set a fire in Egypt, and when all her helpers will be destroyed. In that day will messengers go out from me in ships to make the careless Ethiopians afraid, and great pain will come upon them, as in the day of Egypt, for lo, it comes. This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, I will also make the multitude of Egypt to cease by the hand of Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon. He and his people with him, the terrible of the nations, will be brought to destroy the land, and they will draw their swords against Egypt, and fill the land with the slain. And I will make the rivers dry and sell the land into the hand of the wicked, and I will make the land waste and all that is therein, by the hand of foreigners. I, Yhwh, have spoken it. This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, I will also destroy the idols, and I will cause their images to cease out of Noph, and there will be no more a prince from the land of Egypt, and I will put a fear in the land of Egypt. And I will make Pathros desolate, and will set fire in Zoan, and will execute judgments in No. And I will pour my fury upon Sin, the strength of Egypt, and I will cut off the multitude of No. And I will set fire in Egypt, Sin will have great pain, and No will be torn asunder, and Noph will have distresses, daily. The young men of Avon and of Pibzoth will fall by the sword, and these cities will go into captivity. At Tahaphnehes also the day will be darkened, when I will break there the yokes of Egypt, and the pomp of her strength will cease in her. As for her, a cloud will cover her, and her daughters will go into captivity. So will I execute judgments in Egypt, and they will know that I am Yhwh. And it came to pass in the 11th year, in the first month, on the 7th day of the month, that the word of Yhwh came to me saying, Son of man, I have broken the arm of Pharaoh king of Egypt, and lo, it will not be bound up to be healed, to put a roller to bind it, to make it strong to hold the sword. Therefore this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, Lo, I am against Pharaoh king of Egypt, and I have broken his arms, the strong one and the broken one, and have caused the sword to fall out of his hand. And I will scatter the Egyptians among the nations, and will disperse them through the countries. And I will strengthen the arms of the king of Babylon and put my sword in his hand, but I will break Pharaoh's arms, and he will groan before him with the groaning of a mortally wounded man. But I will strengthen the arms of the king of Babylon, and the arms of Pharaoh will fall down. And they will know that I am YHWH, when I will put my sword into the hand of the king of Babylon, and he will stretch it out upon the land of Egypt. And I will scatter the Egyptians among the nations and disperse them among the countries, and they will know that I am YHWH. And it came to pass in the 11th year, in the 3rd month, on the 1st day of the month that the word of YHWH came to me saying, Son of man, speak to Pharaoh king of Egypt and to his multitude, who are you like in your greatness? Observe, the Assyrian was a cedar in Lebanon with fair branches, and with a shadowing shroud and of a high stature, and his top was among the thick boughs. The waters made him great, the deep set him up on high with her rivers running around the plants, and sent out her little rivers to all the trees of the field. Therefore his height was exalted above all the trees of the field, and his boughs were multiplied and his branches became long because of the multitude of waters, when he shot forth. All the flying creatures of the sky made their nests in his boughs, and under his branches did all the beasts of the field engender their young, and under his shadow lived all great nations. So was he handsome in his greatness, in the length of his branches, because his root was near great waters. The cedars in the garden of Elohim could not hide him, the fir trees were not like his boughs, and the chestnut trees were not like his branches, nor any tree in the garden of Elohim was like him in his beauty. I have made him handsome by the multitude of his branches, so that all the trees of Eden, angels, that were in the garden of Elohim, envied him. Therefore this is what Adonai YHWH declares, because you have lifted up yourself in height, and he has shot up his top among the thick boughs, and his heart is lifted up in his height, I have therefore delivered him into the hand of the mighty one of the heathen, he will certainly deal with him, I have driven him out for his wickedness. And foreigners, the terrible of the nations have cut him off, and have left him, upon the mountains and in all the valleys his branches are fallen, and his boughs are broken by all the rivers of the land. And all the people of the earth are gone down from his shadow and have left him. Upon his ruin will all the flying creatures of the sky remain, and all the beasts of the field will be upon his branches, to the end that none of all the trees by the waters exalt themselves for their height, neither shoot up their top among the thick boughs, neither their trees stand up in their height, all that drink water. Because they are all delivered to death, to the lowest parts of the earth, in the midst of the children of men, with them that go down to the pit. This is what Adonai YHWH declares, in the day when he went down to the grave I caused a mourning, I covered the deep for him and I restrained the floods, and the great waters were restrained. And I caused Lebanon to mourn for him, and all the trees of the field wilted for him. I made the nations to shake at the sound of his fall, when I cast him down to Sheol with them that descend into the pit. And all the trees of Eden, angels, the choice and best of Lebanon, all that drink water, will be comforted in the lowest parts of the earth. They also went down into Sheol with him to them that are slain with the sword, and they that were his arm that lived under his shadow in the midst of the heathen. To who are you like in glory and in greatness among the trees of Eden, angels? Yet will you be brought down with the trees of Eden, angels, to the lowest parts of the earth, you will lie in the midst of the uncircumcised with them that are slain by the sword. This is Pharaoh and his entire multitude, declares Adonai YHWH. And it came to pass in the 12th year, in the 12th month, on the 1st day of the month that the word of YHWH came to me saying, Son of man, take up a dirge for Pharaoh king of Egypt and say to him, You are like a young lion of the nations, and you are as a whale in the seas. And you came out with your rivers, and troubled the waters with your feet and fouled their rivers. This is what Adonai YHWH declares, I will therefore spread out my net over you with a company of many people, and they will bring you up in my net. Then I will leave you on the land, I will cast you out on the open field, and will cause all the flying creatures of the sky to remain on you, and I will fill the beasts of the whole earth with you. And I will lay your flesh upon the mountains, and fill the valleys with your lofty stature. I will also water with your blood the land where you swim, even to the mountains, and the rivers will be full of you. And in quenching you I have covered the skies, and have made black their stars, the sun with a cloud I do cover, and the moon cause not its light to shine. All the bright lights of the skies will I make dark over you, and set darkness upon your land, declares Adonai YHWH. I will also vex the hearts of many people, when I will bring your destruction among the nations, into the countries that you have not known. Yes, I will make many people amazed at you, and their kings will be horribly afraid for you, when I will brandish my sword before them, and they will tremble at every moment, everyone for their own life, in the day of your fall. Because this is what Adonai YHWH declares, the sword of the king of Babylon will come upon you. By the swords of the mighty I will cause your multitude to fall, the terrible of the nations, all of them, and they will plunder the pomp of Egypt, and all the multitude will be destroyed. I will also destroy all the animals from beside the great waters, neither will the foot of man trouble them any more, nor the hoofs of animals trouble them. Then I will make their waters deep and cause their rivers to run like oil, declares Adonai YHWH. When I will make the land of Egypt desolate, and the country will be destitute of what it was full of, when I will strike all them that live there, then will they know that I am YHWH. This is the dirge with which they will mourn her, the daughters of the nations will mourn her, they will mourn for her, even for Egypt and for all her multitude, declares Adonai YHWH. It came to pass also in the 12th year, on the 15th day of the month, that the word of YHWH came to me, saying, Son of man, wail for the multitude of Egypt and cast them down, even her, and the daughters of the famous nations, unto the lowest parts of the earth, with them that go down into the pit. Who do you pass in beauty? Go down and be you laid, sexually, with the uncircumcised. They will fall in the midst of them that are slain by the sword, she is delivered to the sword, draw her and all her multitudes. The strong among the mighty will speak to him out of the middle of Sheol with them that help him, they are gone down, they lie uncircumcised, slain by the sword. Ashur, Assyria, is there in all her company, his graves are around him, all of them slain, fallen by the sword, whose graves are set in the sides of the pit, and her company is around her grave, all of them slain, fallen by the sword that caused terror in the land of the living. There is Elam and all her multitude around her grave, all of them slain, fallen by the sword that are gone down uncircumcised into the lowest parts of the earth, which caused their terror in the land of the living. Yet have they borne their shame with them that go down to the pit, they have set her a bed among the slain with all her multitude, her graves are around him. All of them uncircumcised, slain by the sword, though their terror was caused in the land of the living, still have they borne their shame with them that go down to the pit, he is put among them that are slain. There is Meshech, Tubal, and all her multitude, her graves are around him, all of them uncircumcised, slain by the sword, though they caused their terror in the land of the living. And they will not lie with the mighty that are fallen of the uncircumcised that are gone down to Sheol with their weapons of war. And they have laid their swords under their heads, but their depravities will be upon their bones, though they were the terror of the mighty in the land of the living. Yes, you will be broken among the uncircumcised, and will lie with them that are slain with the sword. There is Edom, her kings and all her princes, that with their might are laid by them that were slain by the sword, they will lie with the uncircumcised, and with them that go down to the pit. There are the princes of the north, all of them, and all the Zidonians that are gone down with the slain, with their terror they are ashamed of their might. And they lie uncircumcised with them that are slain by the sword, and bear their shame with them that go down to the pit. Pharaoh will see them and will be comforted over all his multitude, even Pharaoh and all his army slain by the sword, declares Adonai YHWH. Because I have caused my terror in the land of the living, and he will be laid among the uncircumcised with them that are slain with the sword, even Pharaoh and all his multitude, declares Adonai YHWH. Again the word of YHWH came to me, saying, Son of man, speak to the children of your people and say to them, when I bring the sword on a land, if the people of the land take a man from their coasts, and set him for their watchman, if when he sees the sword come on the land, he blows the trumpet and warns the people, then whoever hears the sound of the trumpet and takes not warning, if the sword comes and take him away, his blood will be on his own head. He heard the sound of the trumpet and took not warning, his blood will be on him. But he that takes warning will deliver his life. But if the watchman sees the sword come and blows not the trumpet, and the people are not warned, if the sword comes and takes any person from among them, they are taken away in their own depravity, but their blood will I require at the watchman's hand. So you, O son of man, I have set you a watchman to the house of Israel, therefore you will hear the word at my mouth and warn them from me. When I say to the wicked, O wicked, you will certainly die, if you do not speak to warn the wicked from their way, that wicked person will die in their own depravity, but their blood will I require at your hand. Nevertheless, if you warn the wicked of their way to turn from it, if they do not turn from their way, they will die in their own depravity, but you have delivered your life. Therefore, O you son of man, speak to the house of Israel, so will you speak, saying, if our rebellions and our sins are upon us, and we pine away in them, how should we then live? Say to them, as I live, declares Adonai YHWH, I have no pleasure in the death of the wicked, but that the wicked turn from their way and live. Turn you from your bad ways, for why will you die, O house of Israel? Therefore, son of man, say to the children of your people, the righteousness of the righteous will not deliver him in the day of his transgression. As for the wickedness of the wicked, he will not fall in the day that he turns from his wickedness, neither will the righteous be able to live for his righteousness in the day that he sins. When I will say to the righteous that they will certainly live, if they trust to their own righteousness and commit wrong, all their righteousness will not be remembered, but for their wrongs that have committed, they will die for it. Again, when I say to the wicked, you will certainly die, if they turn from their sin and do what is lawful and right, if the wicked restore the pledge, return what they had robbed, walk in the statutes of life, without committing wrong, they will certainly live, they will not die. None of their sins that they had committed will be mentioned to them, they have done what is lawful and right, they will certainly live. Yet the children of your people say, the way of Adonai is not equal, but as for them, their way is not equal. When the righteous turns from their righteousness and commits wrong, they will even die thereby. But if the wicked turn from their wickedness, and do what is lawful and right, they will live thereby. Yet you say, the way of Adonai is not equal. O you house of Israel, I will judge you everyone after their ways. And it came to pass in the 12th year of our captivity, in the 10th month, on the 5th day of the month, that one that had escaped out of Jerusalem came to me saying, the city is struck. And the hand of YHWH has been unto me in the evening, before the coming in of the escaped one, and he opens my mouth till the coming in unto me in the morning, and opened is my mouth, and I have not been silent again. Then the word of YHWH came to me saying, Son of man, they that inhabit those wastes of the land of Israel speak saying, Abraham was one and he inherited the land, but we are many, the land is given to us for inheritance. Therefore say to them, this is what Adonai YHWH declares, you eat with the blood, and lift up your eyes toward your idols and shed blood, and will you possess the land? You stand upon your sword, you work abomination and you defile everyone his neighbor's woman, and will you possess the land? Say this to them, this is what Adonai YHWH declares, as I live, certainly they that are in the wastes will fall by the sword, and him that is in the open field will I give to the beasts to be devoured, and they that are in the forts and in the caves will die of the plague. Because I will lay the land most desolate, and the pomp of her strength will cease, and the mountains of Israel will be desolate so that none will pass through. Then will they know that I am YHWH, when I have laid the land most desolate because of all their abominations that they have committed. Also, son of man, the children of your people still are talking against you by the walls and in the doors of the houses, and speak one to another, every one to his brother saying, Come I ask you, and hear what is the word that comes from YHWH. And they come to you as the people come, and they sit before you as my people, and they hear your words, but they will not do them, because with their mouth they show much love, but their heart goes after their unjust gain. And lo, you are to them as a very lovely song of one that has a pleasant voice, and can play well on an instrument, because they hear your words, but they do them not. And when this comes to pass, lo, it will come, then will they know that a prophet has been among them. Then the word of YHWH came to me saying, Son of man, prophesy against the rulers of Israel, prophesy and say to them, this is what Adonai YHWH says to the rulers, Woe to the rulers of Israel that do feed themselves. Should not the shepherds feed the flocks? You eat the fat, and you clothe yourself with the wool, you kill them that are fed, but you feed not the flock. The diseased you have not restored to strength, neither have you healed what was sick, neither have you bound up what was broken, neither have you brought back what was driven away, neither have you sought what was lost, but with force and with cruelty you have subjugated them. And they were scattered, because there is no ruler, and they became meat to all the animals of the field, when they were scattered. My sheep wandered through all the mountains, and on every high hill, yes, my flock was scattered on all the surface of the earth, and none did search or seek after them. Therefore you rulers, hear the word of YHWH, as I live, declares Adonai YHWH, surely because my flock became a prey, and my flock became meat to every animal of the field, because there was no shepherd, neither did my shepherds search for my flock, but the rulers fed themselves, and fed not my flock. Therefore, O you rulers, hear the word of YHWH, this is what Adonai YHWH declares, Look, I am against the rulers and I will require my flock at their hand, and cause them to cease from feeding the flock. Neither will the shepherds feed themselves any more, because I will deliver my flock from their mouth so that they may not be meat for them. Because this is what Adonai YHWH declares, Look, I, even I, will both search for my sheep, and seek them out. As a shepherd seeks out his flock in the day that he is among his sheep that are scattered, so will I seek out my sheep, and will deliver them out of all places where they have been scattered in the day of the dark cloud mass. And I will bring them out from the people, and gather them from the countries, and will bring them to their own land, and feed them upon the mountains of Israel by the rivers, and in all the inhabited places of the country. I will feed them in a good pasture, and upon the high mountains of Israel will their dwelling be, there will they lie in a good abode, and in a fat pasture will they feed upon the mountains of Israel. I will feed my flock and I will cause them to lie down, declares Adonai YHWH. I will seek what was lost, and bring back what was driven away, and will bind up what was broken, and will strengthen what was sick, but I will destroy the fat and the strong, I will feed them with judgment. And as for you, O my flock, this is what Adonai YHWH declares, Look, I judge between cattle and cattle, between the rams and the he-goats. Is it a little thing for you, the good pasture you enjoy, and the remnant, Of your pasture you tread down with your feet, and a depth of waters you do drink, and the remainder with your feet you trample. And as for my flock, they eat what you have trampled with your feet, and they drink what you have fouled with your feet. Therefore this is what Adonai Yhwh says to them, Look, I, even I, will judge between the fat cattle and between the lean cattle. Because you have thrust with side and with shoulder, and pushed all the diseased with your horns, until you have scattered them abroad, therefore I will save my flock, and they will no more be a prey, and I will judge between cattle and cattle. And I will set up one ruler over them, and he will feed them, even my slave David, he will feed them and he will be their ruler. And I, Yhwh will be their Elohim, and my slave David a chief among them. I, Yhwh, have spoken it. And I will cut out with them a covenant of peace, and will cause the vicious beasts to cease out of the land, and they will live safely in the pastures, and sleep in the forests. And I have given them, and the suburbs of my hill, a blessing, and caused the shower to come down in its season, showers of blessing they are. And the tree of the field will yield her fruit, and the earth will yield her increase, and they will be safe in their land and will know that I am Yhwh, when I have broken the bands of their yoke, and delivered them out of the hand of those that serve themselves of them. And they will no more be a prey to the heathen, neither will the animals of the land devour them, but they will live safely, and none will make them afraid. And I will raise up for them a plantation of glory, and they will be no more consumed with hunger in the land, neither bear the shame of the heathen any more. Then will they know that I, Yhwh, their Elohim am with them, and that they, even the house of Israel are my people, declares Adonai Yhwh. And you my flock, the flock of my pasture are men, and I am your Elohim, declares Adonai Yhwh. Moreover the word of Yhwh came to me saying, Son of man, set your face against Mount Seir and prophesy against it. And say to it, This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, Look, O Mount Seir, I am against you, and I will stretch out my hand against you, and I will make you most desolate. I will lay your cities waste, and you will be desolate, and you will know that I am Yhwh. Because you have had a long-standing hatred, and have shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, in the time that their depravity had an end. Therefore, as I live declares Adonai Yhwh, surely for blood I do appoint you, and blood will pursue you, if blood you have not hated, blood also will pursue you. So will I make Mount Seir most desolate and cut off from it him that passes out and him that returns. And I will fill his mountains with his slain, in your hills and in your valleys, and in all your rivers will they fall that are killed with the sword. I will make you an age-lasting devastation, and your cities will not return, and you will know that I am Yhwh. Because you have said, These two nations and these two countries will be mine, and we will possess it, whereas Yhwh was there, therefore, as I exist says Adonai Yhwh, I will even do according to your anger, and according to your envy that you have used out of your hatred against them, and I will make myself known among them, when I have judged you. And you will know that I am Yhwh and that I have heard all your blasphemies that you have spoken against the mountains of Israel saying, They are laid desolate, they are given us to devour. So with your mouth you have boasted against me and have multiplied your words against me, I have heard them. This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, When the whole earth rejoices, I will make you desolate. As you did rejoice at the inheritance of the house of Israel, because it was desolate, so will I do to you, you will be waste O Mount Seir, and all Edom, even all of it, and they will know that I am Yhwh. Also, you son of man, prophesy to the mountains of Israel and say, You mountains of Israel, hear the word of Yhwh, this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, because the enemy has said against you, Aha, even the ancient high places are ours in possession, therefore prophesy and say, This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, because they have made you desolate, and swallowed you up on every side so that you might be a possession to the descendants of the heathen, and you are taken up in the lips of talkers, and are an infamy of the people. Therefore, you mountains of Israel, hear the word of Adonai Yhwh, this is what Adonai Yhwh declares to the mountains, hills, rivers, valleys, desolate wastes, and to the cities that are forsaken, which became a prey and derision to the rest of the heathen that are all around. Therefore this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, Certainly in the supernatural fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the rest of the heathen, and against all Idumea that have appointed my land into their possession with the joy of all their heart, with despiteful minds, to cast it out for a prey. Prophesy therefore concerning the land of Israel and say to the mountains, hills, rivers, and the valleys, This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, Look, I have spoken in my jealousy and in my fury, because you have borne the shame of the heathen. Therefore this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, I have lifted up my hand, surely the heathen that are around you, they will bear their shame. But you, O mountains of Israel, you will sprout your branches, and yield your fruit to my people of Israel, for they are soon homeward bound. Now look, I am for you and I will turn to you, and you will be tilled and sown, and I will multiply men upon you, all the house of Israel, even all of it, and its cities will be inhabited, and the wastes will be rebuilt, and I will multiply upon you man and animal, and they will increase and bring fruit, and I will settle you after your old estates, and will do better to you than at your beginnings, and you will know that I am YHWH. Yes, I will cause men to walk upon you, even my people Israel, and they will possess you, and you will be their inheritance and you will add no more to bereave them. So declares Adonai YHWH, because they are saying to you, a devourer of men are you, and a bereaver of your nations you have been, therefore you will devour men no more, neither bereave your nation any more, declares Adonai YHWH. Neither will I cause people to hear in you the shame of the heathen any more, neither will you bear the scorn of the people any more, neither will you cause your nations to fall any more, declares Adonai YHWH. Moreover the word of YHWH came to me saying, Son of man, when the house of Israel lived in their own land, they defiled it by their own way and by their practices, their way was before me as the uncleanness of a menstruous woman. Therefore I poured my fury on them for the blood that they had shed upon the land, and for their idols with which they had defiled it, and I scattered them among the heathen and they were dispersed through the countries, according to their way and according to their practices I judged them. And when they entered unto the heathen, where they went, they desecrated my holy name, when they said to them, These are the people of YHWH, and are gone out of his land. But I had pity for my holy name that the house of Israel had desecrated among the heathen where they went. Therefore say to the house of Israel, This is what Adonai YHWH declares, I do not do this for your sakes, O house of Israel, but for my holy name's sake, which you have desecrated among the heathen where you went. And I will consecrate my great name that was desecrated among the heathen, which you have desecrated among them, and the heathen will know that I am YHWH, declares Adonai YHWH, when I will be consecrated in you before their eyes, because I will take you from among the heathen and gather you out of all countries, and will bring you into your own land. Then I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you will be clean, from all your filthiness and from all your idols I will cleanse you. A new heart also I will give you, and a new spirit I will put within you, and I will remove the stony heart out of your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes, and you will observe my judgments and institute them. And you will live in the land that I gave to your forefathers, and you will be my people and I will be your Elohim. I will also save you from all your uncleanness, and I will call for the corn and will increase it, and lay no famine on you. And I will multiply the fruit of the tree, and the increase of the field, so that you will receive no more reproach of famine among the heathen. Then will you remember your own bad ways and your practices that were not good, and will loathe yourselves in your own sight for your depravities and for your abominations. Not for your own sakes do I do this, says Adonai YHWH, be it known to you, be ashamed and humiliated for your own ways, O house of Israel. This is what Adonai YHWH declares, in the day that I will have cleansed you from all your depravities I will also cause you to reside in the cities, and the wastes will be rebuilt. And the wasted land will be tilled, whereas it lay desolate in the sight of all that pass by. And they will say, This land that was desolate has been as the Garden of Eden, and the waste and desolate and ruined cities are become fenced, and are inhabited. Then the heathen that are left around you will know that I, YHWH, rebuilt the ruined places, and plant what has been desolate. I, YHWH, have spoken it and I will do it. This is what Adonai YHWH declares, I will yet for this be inquired of, Urim Thummim, by the house of Israel, to institute it for them, I will increase them with men like a flock. As the holy flock, as the flock of Jerusalem in her appointed place, so will the waste cities be filled with flocks of men, and they will know that I am YHWH. The hand of YHWH was upon me and carried me out in the spirit of YHWH, and set me down in the middle of the valley that was full of bones, and caused me to pass by them all around, and behold, there were very many in the open valley, and lo, they were very dry. And he said to me, Son of man, can these bones live? And I answered, O Adonai YHWH, you know. Again he said to me, Prophesy upon these bones and say to them, O you dry bones, hear the word of YHWH. This is what Adonai YHWH declares to these bones, Observe, I will cause breath to enter into you and you will live, and I will lay sinews upon you, and will bring up flesh upon you, and cover you with skin, and put breath in you, and you will live, and you will know that I am YHWH. So I prophesied as I was commanded, and as I prophesied, there was a noise, and behold a shaking, and the bones came together, bone to its bone. And when I watched, lo, the sinews and the flesh came up upon them, and the skin covered them above, but there was no breath in them. Then he said to me, Prophesy to the wind, prophesy son of man, and say to the wind, This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, Come from the four winds, O breath, and breathe upon these slain so that they may live. So I prophesied as he commanded me, and the breath came into them and they lived, and stood up on their feet, an exceedingly great army. Then he said to me, Son of man, these bones are the family of Israel. Behold, they say, Our bones are dried and our hope is lost, we are cut off for our parts. Therefore prophesy and say to them, This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, Observe, O my people, I will open your graves and cause you to come up out of your graves, and bring you into the land of Israel. And you will know that I am Yhwh, when I have opened your graves, O my people, and brought you up out of your graves, and will put my spirit in you, and you will live, and I will place you in your own land. Then will you know that I, Yhwh, have spoken it and performed it, declares Yhwh. The word of Yhwh came again to me saying, Moreover, son of man, take yourself one stick and write on it, for Judah and for the children of Israel his companions. Then take another stick, and write on it, for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and for all the house of Israel his companions, and join them one to another into one stick, and they will become one in your hand. And when the children of your people will speak to you saying, Will you not show us what you mean by these? Say to them, This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, Observe, I will take the stick of Joseph that is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel his fellows, and will put them with him, even with the stick of Judah, and make them one stick, and they will be one in my hand. And the sticks on which you write will be in your hand before their eyes. Then say to them, This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, Observe, I will take the children of Israel from among the heathen, where they are gone, and will gather them on every side and bring them into their own land, and I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel, and one king will be king to them all, and they will be no more two nations, neither will they be divided into two kingdoms any more at all, neither will they defile themselves any more with their idols, nor with their detestable things, nor with any of their rebellions, but I will save them out of all their dwelling places where they have sinned, and will cleanse them. So will they be my people, and I will be their Elohim. And David my slave will be king over them, and they all will have one shepherd. They will also walk in my judgments and observe my statutes, and institute them. And they will live in the land that I have given to Jacob my slave, in which your forefathers have lived, and they will reside there, even they and their children, and their children's children for the ages, and my slave David will be their chief for the ages. Moreover, I will make a covenant of peace with them, it will be an age-lasting covenant with them, and I will place them and multiply them, and will set my sacred place among them for the ages. My tabernacle also will be with them, yes, I will be their Elohim and they will be my people. And the heathen will know that I, Yhwh, do consecrate Israel, when my sacred place will be among them for the ages. Then the word of Yhwh came to me saying, Son of man, set your face against Gog the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, Look, I am against you, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn you back and put hooks into your jaws, and I will bring you out and all your army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords, Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet, Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with you. Be prepared, and prepare for yourself, you, and all your company that are assembled to you, and be a guard to them. After many days you will be visited, in the latter years you will come into the land that is brought back from the sword, and is gathered out of many people, against the mountains of Israel that have been always waste. But it is brought out of the nations, and they will live safely all of them. You will ascend and come like a storm, you will be like a cloud to cover the land, you and all your bands, and many people with you. This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, It will also come to pass, that at the same time will things come into your mind and you will think bad thoughts, and you will say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages, I will go to them that are at rest, that live safely, all of them living without walls, and having neither bars nor gates. To take a plunder and to take a prey, to turn your hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited, and on the people that are gathered out of the nations that have gotten cattle and goods, that live in the midst of the land. Sheba, Dedan, and the merchants of Tarshish, with all the young lions will say to you, Are you come to take a booty? Have you gathered your company to take a prey? To carry away silver and gold, to take away cattle and goods, to take a great spoil? Therefore, son of man, prophesy and say to Gog, This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, In that day when my people of Israel reside safely, will you not know it? And you will come from your place out of the north parts, you and many people with you, all of them riding on horses, a great company and a mighty army, and you will come up against my people of Israel as a cloud to cover the land. It will be in the last days, and I will bring you against my land, that the heathen may know me, when I will be consecrated in you, O Gog, before their eyes. This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, are you he of whom I have spoken in old times by my slaves the prophets of Israel that prophesied in those days many years that I would bring you against them? And it will come to pass at the same time when Gog will come against the land of Israel, says Adonai Yhwh, that my fury will come up in my face. Because in my jealousy and in the supernatural fire of my anger have I spoken, certainly in that day there will be a great shaking in the land of Israel, so that the fish of the sea and the flying creatures of the sky, and the animals of the field, and all creeping things that creep on the earth, and all the men that are on the surface of the earth, will shake at my presence, and the mountains will be thrown down and the steep places will fall, and every wall will fall to the ground. And I will call for a sword against him throughout all my mountains, declares Adonai Yhwh, every man's sword will be against his brother. And I will plead against him with plague and with blood, and I will rain upon him and upon his bands, and upon the many people that are with him, an overflowing rain, and great hailstones, fire, and brimstone. So will I magnify myself, and consecrate myself, and I will be known in the eyes of many nations, and they will know that I am Yhwh. Therefore, son of man, prophesy against Gog and say, this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, look, I am against you, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn you back, and leave but the sixth part of you, and will cause you to come up from the north parts, and will bring you upon the mountains of Israel, and I will hit your bow out of your left hand, and will cause your arrows to fall out of your right hand. You will fall upon the mountains of Israel, you and all your bands, and the people that are with you. I will give you to the ravenous birds of every sort, and to the beasts of the field to be devoured. You will be cast down upon the open field, because I have spoken it, declares Adonai Yhwh. And I will send a fire on Magog and among them that live carelessly in the isles, and they will know that I am Yhwh. So I will make my holy name known among my people Israel, and I will not let them desecrate my holy name any more, and the heathen will know that I am Yhwh, the Holy One in Israel. Look, it has come and it is done, declares Adonai Yhwh, this is the day of which I have spoken. And they that live in the cities of Israel will go out, and will set on fire and burn the weapons, both the shields, bucklers, bows, arrows, hand staves, and the spears, and they will burn them with fire for 7 years, so that they will take no wood out of the field, neither cut down any out of the forests, because they will burn the weapons with fire, and they will spoil those that spoiled them, and rob those that robbed them, declares Adonai Yhwh. And it will come to pass in that day that I will give to Gog a place there of graves in Israel, the valley of the passengers on the east of the sea. And it will stop the noses of the passengers, and there they will bury Gog and all his multitude, and they will call it the valley of Hamon-Gog. And 7 months will the house of Israel be burying of them, that they may cleanse the land. Yes, all the people of the land have buried them, and it has been to them for a name, the day of my being honored, an affirmation of Adonai Yhwh. And they will sever out men of continual employment, passing through the land to bury with the passengers those that remain on the surface of the earth, to cleanse it. After the end of 7 months will they search. And the passengers that passes through the land, when any sees a man's bone, then will he set up a sign by it, until the buriers have buried it in the valley of Hamon-Gog. And also the name of the city will be Hamanah. So will they cleanse the land. And you, son of man, so declares Adonai Yhwh, speak to every feathered bird and to every beast of the field, assemble yourselves and come. Gather yourselves on every side to my sacrifice that I do sacrifice for you, even a great sacrifice on the mountains of Israel, that you may eat flesh and drink blood. You will eat the flesh of the mighty and drink the blood of the princes of the earth, of rams, lambs, goats, steers, all of them well fed from Bashan. And you will eat fat until you are full, and drink blood until you are drunken, of my sacrifice that I have sacrificed for you. So you will be filled at my table with horses and chariots, with mighty men, and with all men of war, declares Adonai Yhwh. And I will set my glory among the heathen, and all the heathen will see my judgment that I have executed and my hand that I have laid upon them. So the house of Israel will know that I am Yhwh Elohim, from that day forward. And the heathen will know that the house of Israel went into captivity for their depravity, because they transgressed against me, therefore I hid my face from them and gave them into the hand of their enemies, so fell they all by the sword. According to their uncleanness and according to their transgressions have I done to them, and hid my face from them. Therefore this is what Adonai Yhwh declares, now I will return the captivity of Jacob, and have mercy on the whole family of Israel, and will be jealous for my holy name, after that they have borne their shame, and all their trespasses in which they have transgressed against me, when they reside safely in their land and none made them afraid. When I have brought them back from the people and gathered them out of their enemies' lands, and am consecrated in them in the sight of many nations, then will they know that I am Yhwh Elohim that caused them to be led into captivity among the heathen, but I have gathered them to their own land, and have left none of them any more there. Neither will I hide my face any more from them, because I have poured out my spirit on the family of Israel, declares Adonai Yhwh. In the 25th year of our captivity, in the beginning of the year, on the 10th day of the month, in the 14th year after that the city was attacked, on the very same day the hand of Yhwh was upon me and brought me there. In the visions of Elohim he brought me into the land of Israel, and set me on a very high mountain, by which was as the frame of a city on the south. And he brought me there, and look, there was a male, whose appearance was like the appearance of bronze, with a line of flax in his hand, and a measuring reed, 6 cubits, and he stood in the gate. And the male said to me, Son of man, observe with your eyes and hear with your ears, and set your heart upon all that I will show you. Because to the intent that I might show them to you are you brought here, declare all that you see, to the family of Israel. And behold, a wall on the outside of the house all around, and in the male's hand a measuring reed of 6 cubits long by the cubit, 1.5 feet, and a hand width, 3 inches. So he measured the width of the building, 1 reed, and the height, 1 reed. Then he came to the gate that looks toward the east, and went up the stairs, and measured the threshold of the gate, which was 1 reed broad, and the other threshold of the gate, which was 1 reed broad. And every little chamber was 1 reed long, and 1 reed broad, and between the little chambers were 5 cubits, and the threshold of the gate by the porch of the gate within was 1 reed. He measured also the porch of the gate within, 1 reed. Then he measured the porch of the gate, 8 cubits, and its posts, 2 cubits, and the porch of the gate was inward. And the little chambers of the gate eastward were 3 on this side, and 3 on that side, they 3 were of 1 measure, and its posts had 1 measure on this side and on that side. And he measured the width of the entry of the gate, 10 cubits, and the length of the gate, 13 cubits. The space also before the little chambers was 1 cubit on this side, and the space was 1 cubit on that side, and the little chambers were 6 cubits on this side, and 6 cubits on that side. He then measured the gate from the roof of one little chamber to the roof of another, the width was 25 cubits, door against door. He also made posts of 60 cubits, even to the post of the court all around the gate. And from the face of the gate of the entrance to the face of the porch of the inner gate were 50 cubits. And there were narrow windows to the little chambers, and to their posts within the gate all around, and likewise to the arches, and windows were all around inward, and on each post were palm trees. Then he brought me into the outward court, and lo, there were chambers and a pavement made for the court all around, 30 chambers were on the pavement, and the pavement by the side of the gates opposite the length of the gates was the lower pavement. Then he measured the width from the forefront of the lower gate to the forefront of the inner court without, 100 cubits eastward and northward. And the gate of the outward court that looked toward the north, he measured its length and its width. And the little chambers were 3 on this side and 3 on that side, and the posts and the arches were after the measure of the first gate, the length was 50 cubits, and the width 25 cubits. And their windows, and their arches and their palm trees, were after the measure of the gate that looks toward the east, and they went up to it by 7 steps, and its arches were before them. And the gate of the inner court was opposite the gate toward the north, and toward the east, and he measured from gate to gate 100 cubits. After he that brought me toward the south, see, a gate toward the south, and he measured its posts and its arches according to these measurements. And there were windows in it and in its arches all around, like those windows, its length was 50 cubits, and its width 25 cubits. And there were 7 steps to go up to it, and its arches were before them, and it had palm trees, one on this side and another on that side, upon its posts. And there was a gate in the inner court toward the south, and he measured from gate to gate toward the south 100 cubits. And he brought me to the inner court by the south gate, and he measured the south gate according to these measurements, and the little chambers, and its posts, and its arches, according to these measurements. And there were windows in it and in its arches all around, it was 50 cubits long, and 25 cubits wide. And its arches all around were 25 cubits long, and 5 cubits wide. And its arches were toward the outer court, and palm trees were on its posts, and the going up to it had 8 steps. And he brought me into the inner court toward the east, and he measured the gate according to these measurements. And the little chambers, and its posts, and its arches, were according to these measurements. And there were windows there and in its arches all around, it was 50 cubits long, and 25 cubits wide. And its arches were toward the outer court, and palm trees were on its posts, on this side and on that side, and the going up to it had 8 steps. And he brought me to the north gate, and measured it according to these measurements, its little chambers, its posts, and its arches, and the windows to it all around. Its length was 50 cubits, and the width 25 cubits. And its posts were toward the outer court, and palm trees were on its posts, on this side and on that side, and the going up to it had 8 steps. And its chambers and its entries were by the posts of the gates, where they washed the whole burnt offering. And in the porch of the gate were 2 tables on this side, and 2 tables on that side, to slay there the whole burnt offering and the sin offering and the trespass offering. And at the side without, as one goes up to the entry of the north gate, were 2 tables, and on the other side, which was at the porch of the gate, were 2 tables. And 4 tables were on this side, and 4 tables on that side, by the side of the gate, 8 tables, where they slaughtered their sacrifices. And the 4 tables were of cut stone for the whole burnt offering, of 1.5 cubits long, and 1.5 cubits wide, and 1 cubit high, where also they laid the instruments with which they slaughtered the whole burnt offering and the sacrifice. And within were hooks, a hand wide, fastened all around, and on the tables was the flesh of the offering. And on the outside of the inner gate are chambers of the singers, in the inner court, that are at the side of the north gate, and their fronts are southward, one at the side of the east gate has the front northward. Then he said to me, This chamber, whose prospect is toward the south, is for the priests, the guards of the watch of the house. And the chamber whose front is toward the north is for the priests, the guards of the charge of the altar. These are the sons of Zadok among the sons of Levi that come near to YHWH to minister to him. So he measured the court, 100 cubits long, and 100 cubits wide, 4 square, and the altar that was before the court. And he brought me to the porch of the house, and measured each post of the porch, 5 cubits on this side, and 5 cubits on that side, and the width of the gate was 3 cubits on this side, and 3 cubits on that side. The length of the porch was 20 cubits, and its width 11 cubits, and he brought me by the steps where they went up to it, and there were pillars by the posts, one on this side, and another on that side. Afterward he brought me to the palace, and measured its posts, 6 cubits broad on the one side, and 6 cubits broad on the other side, which was the width of the tent. And the width of the door was 10 cubits, and the sides of the door were 5 cubits on the one side, and 5 cubits on the other side, and he measured its length, 40 cubits, and the width, 20 cubits. Then went he inward, and measured the post of the door, 2 cubits, and the door, 6 cubits, and the width of the door, 7 cubits. So he measured its length, 20 cubits, and its width, 20 cubits, before the palace, and he said to me, This is the most holy place. After he measured the wall of the house, 6 cubits, and its width of every side chamber, 4 cubits, all around the house on every side. And the side chambers, one over another, were 3, and that 30 times, and they are entering into the wall, which the house has for the side chambers all around, to be taken hold of, and they are not taken hold of by the wall of the house. And there was an enlarging, and a winding about still upward to the side chambers. Because the winding about of the house went still upward all around the house, therefore the width of the house was still upward, and so increased from the lowest chamber to the highest by the middle one. I saw also the height of the house all around. The foundations of the side chambers were a full reed of 6 great cubits. The thickness of the wall, which was for the side chamber outside, was 5 cubits, and what was left was the place of the side chambers that were inside. And between the chambers was the expanse of 20 cubits all around the house on every side. And the doors of the side chambers were toward the place that was left, one door toward the north, and another door toward the south, and the width of the place that was left was 5 cubits all around. Now the building that was before the separate place at the end toward the west was 70 cubits wide, and the wall of the building was 5 cubits thick all around, and its length 90 cubits. So he measured the house, 100 cubits long, and the separate place, and the building, with its walls, 100 cubits long, also the width of the face of the house, and of the separate place toward the east, 100 cubits. And he measured the length of the building opposite the separate place that was behind it, and its galleries on the one side and on the other side, 100 cubits, with the inner palace, and its porches of the court, the door posts and the narrow windows, and the galleries all around on their 3 stories, opposite the door, wainscoted with wood all around, and from the ground up to the windows, and the windows were covered, to that above the door, even to the inner house, and outside, and by all the wall around inside and out, by measure. And it was fashioned with cherubim and palm trees, so that a palm tree was between a cherub, and every cherub had 2 faces, so that the face of a man was toward the palm tree on the one side, and the face of a young lion toward the palm tree on the other side. It was fashioned through all the house all around. From the ground to above the door were cherubim and palm trees fashioned, and on the wall of the palace. The posts of the palace were squared, and the face of the sanctuary, the appearance of the one is the appearance of the other. The altar was of wood, 3 cubits high, and its length 2 cubits, and its corners, and its length, and its walls were of wood. And he said to me, This is the table that is before YHWH. And the palace and the sacred place had 2 doors. And the doors had 2 leaves apiece, 2 turning leaves, 2 leaves for the one door, and 2 leaves for the other door. And there were fashioned on them, on the doors of the palace, cherubim and palm trees, like as were made upon the walls, and there were thick planks upon the face of the porch outside. And there were narrow windows and palm trees on the one side and on the other side, on the sides of the porch, and on the side chambers of the house, and thick planks. Then he brought me out into the outer court, the way toward the north, and he brought me into the chamber that was opposite the separate place, and which was before the building toward the north. Before the length of 100 cubits was the north door, and the width was 50 cubits. Opposite the 20 cubits which were for the inner court, and opposite the pavement that was for the outer court, was gallery against gallery in 3 stories. And before the chambers was a walk of 10 cubits width inward, a way of 1 cubit, and their doors toward the north. And the upper chambers are short, for the galleries contain more than these, than the lower, and then the middle one, of the building, for they are threefold, and they have no pillars as the pillars of the court, therefore it has been kept back, more than the lower and then the middle one, from the ground. And the wall that was outside opposite the chambers, toward the outer court on the forepart of the chambers, its length was 50 cubits. 4. The length of the chambers which pertained to the outer court was 50 cubits, and lo, in front of the palace were 100 cubits long. And from under these chambers was the entry on the east side, as one goes into them from the outer court. The chambers were in the thickness of the wall of the court toward the east, opposite the separate place, and opposite the building. And the way before them is as the appearance of the chambers that are northward, according to their length so is their width, and all their outlets, and according to their fashions, and according to their openings. And according to the openings of the chambers that are southward is an opening at the head of the way directly in the front of the wall eastward in entering them. Then he said to me, The north chambers and the south chambers that are before the separate place, they are holy chambers, where the priests that approach to YHWH will eat the most holy things. There will they lay the most holy things, and the grain offering, and the sin offering, and the trespass offering, because the standing place is holy. When the priests enter in, then will they not go out of the holy place into the outer court, but there they will lay their garments where they minister. Because they are holy, and will put on other garments, and will approach to those things that are for the people. Now when he had made an end of measuring the inner house, he brought me out toward the gate whose front is toward the east, and measured it all around. He measured the east side with the measuring reed, 500 reeds, with the measuring reed all around. He measured the north side, 500 reeds, with the measuring reed all around. He measured the south side, 500 reeds, with the measuring reed. He turned around to the west side, and measured 500 reeds with the measuring reed. He measured it by the 4 sides, it had a wall all around, 500 reeds long, and 500 wide, to make a separation between the sacred place and the common place. Afterward he brought me to the gate, even the gate that looks toward the east, and see, the glory of the Elohim of Israel came from the way of the east, and his voice was like a sound of many waters, and the earth shined with his glory. And it was according to the appearance of the vision that I saw, even according to the vision that I saw when I came to destroy the city, and the visions were like the vision that I saw by the Kabar river, and I fell on my face. And the glory of YHWH came into the house by the way of the gate whose front is toward the east. So the Spirit took me up, and brought me into the inner court, and behold, the glory of YHWH filled the house. And I heard him speaking to me out of the house, and the male stood by me. And he said to me, Son of man, the standing place of my throne, and the place of the soles of my feet, where I will live among the children of Israel for the ages, and my holy name, will the house of Israel no more defile, neither they, nor their kings, by their prostitution, nor by the corpses of their kings in their worship places. In their setting of their threshold by my thresholds, and their post by my posts, and the wall between me and them, they have even defiled my holy name by their abominations that they have committed, therefore I have consumed them in my anger. Now let them put away their prostitution, and the corpses of their kings, far from me, and I will live among them for the ages. You son of man, show the house to the house of Israel, that they may be ashamed of their depravities, and let them measure the pattern. And since they have been ashamed of all that they have done, the form of the house and its measurement, and its outlets and its inlets, and all its forms, and all its statutes, even all its forms and all its laws cause them to know. And write it before their eyes, and they observe all its forms and all its statutes, and have instituted them. This is the law of the house. Upon the top of the mountain the whole limit all around will be most holy. Look, this is the law of the house. And these are the measurements of the altar after the cubits, 1.5 feet. The cubit is a cubit and a hand width, 3 inches, even the bottom will be a cubit, and the width a cubit, and the border by the edge all around will be a span, 9 inches, and this will be the upper part of the altar. And from the center of the ground to the lower border is 2 cubits, and its width 1 cubit, and from the lesser border to the greater border 4 cubits, and its width a cubit. So the altar will be 4 cubits, and from the altar and upward will be 4 horns. And the altar will be 12 cubits long, 12 wide, square in the 4 squares thereof. And the border is 14 long by 14 wide, at its 4 squares, and the border all around it is half a cubit, and the center to it is a cubit all around, and its steps are looking eastward. And he said to me, Son of man, so says Adonai Yhwh, these are the ordinances of the altar in the day when they will fashion it, to offer whole burnt offerings on it, and to sprinkle blood on it. And you will give to the priests the Levites that are of the seed of Zadok, which approach to me, to minister to me declares Adonai Yhwh, a young bull for a sin offering. And you will take of its blood, and put it on the 4 horns of it, and on the 4 corners of the ledge, and upon its border all around, so will you cleanse and purge it. You will take the young bull also of the sin offering, and he will burn it in the appointed place of the house, outside the sacred place. And on the 2nd day you will offer a kid from the goats without blemish for a sin offering, and they will cleanse the altar, as they did cleanse it with the young bull. When you have made an end of cleansing it, you will offer a young bullock without blemish, and a ram out of the flock without blemish. And you will offer them before Yhwh, and the priests will cast salt on them, and they will offer them up for a whole burnt offering to Yhwh. For 7 days will you prepare every day a goat for a sin offering, they will also prepare a young bull, and a ram out of the flock, without blemish. For 7 days will they purge the altar and purify it, and they will consecrate themselves. And when these days are expired, it will be that on the 8th day, and onward, the priests will prepare your whole burnt offerings upon the altar, and your peace offerings, and I will accept you declares Adonai Yhwh. And he caused me to turn back the way of the gate of the outer entrance of the sanctuary that is looking eastward, and it is shut. Then Yhwh said to me, This gate will be shut, it will not be opened and no human being will enter in by it, because Yhwh, the Elohim of Israel has entered in by it, therefore it will be shut. The prince, as prince, he shall sit therein, to eat bread before Yhwh, he will enter by the way of the porch of that gate, and will go out by the same way. Then he brought me the way of the north gate before the house, and I looked, and behold, the glory of Yhwh filled the house of Yhwh, and I fell on my face. And Yhwh said to me, Son of man, mark well and observe with your eyes, and hear with your ears all that I say to you concerning all the ordinances of the sanctuary of Yhwh, and all its laws, and mark well the entering in of the house, with every going out of the sacred place. And you will say to the rebellious, even to the house of Israel, This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, O you house of Israel, let it suffice you of all your abominations, in that you have brought in the sons of the foreigner, uncircumcised in heart, and uncircumcised in flesh, to be in my sacred place, to pollute it, even my house when you offer my bread, the fat and the blood, and they have broken my covenant pledge because of all your abominations. And you have not observed the charge of my holy things, but you have set guards of my charge in my sacred place for yourselves. This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, No foreigner, uncircumcised in heart, nor uncircumcised in flesh, will enter into my sanctuary, of any foreigner that is among the children of Israel. And the Levites that are gone away far from me, when Israel went astray, that went astray away from me after their idols, they will even bear their depravity. Still they will be ministers in my sanctuary, having charge at the gates of the house, and ministering to the house, they will slay the whole burnt offering and the sacrifice for the people, and they will stand before them to minister to them. Because they ministered to them before their idols, and caused the house of Israel to fall into depravity, therefore have I lifted up my hand against them declares Adonai Yhwh, and they will bear their depravity, and they will not come near to me, to do the office of a priest to me, nor to come near to any of my holy things, in the most holy place, but they will bear their shame, and their abominations that they have committed. But I will make them guards of the charge of the house, for all its service, and for all that will be done in there. But the priests the Levites, the sons of Zadok, that observe the charge of my sanctuary when the children of Israel went astray from me, they will come near to me to minister to me, and they will stand before me to offer to me the fat and the blood, declares Adonai Yhwh. They will enter into my sanctuary, and they will come near to my table, to minister to me, and they will observe my charge. And it will come to pass, that when they enter in at the gates of the inner court, they will be clothed with linen garments, and no wool will come on them, while they minister in the gates of the inner court and inside. They will have linen turbans on their heads, and will have linen underwear on their hips. They will not gird themselves with anything that causes sweat. And when they go out into the outer court, even into the outer court to the people, they will put off their garments where they ministered, and lay them in the sacred chambers, and they will put on other garments, and they will not consecrate the people with their garments. Neither will they shave their heads, nor suffer their locks to grow long, they will only trim their heads. Neither will any priest drink wine, when they enter into the inner court. Neither will they take for their women a widow, or her that is divorced, but they will take virgins of the seed of the house of Israel, or a widow that had a priest before. And they will teach my people the difference between the holy and common, and cause them to discern between the unclean and the clean. And in controversy they will stand in judgment, and they will judge it according to my judgments, and they will observe my laws, and my statutes in all my assemblies, and they will consecrate my Sabbaths. And unto any dead man they come not in contact for uncleanness, but for father and for mother, and for son, and for daughter, for brother, for sister who has not been with a man, they can make themselves unclean. And after he is cleansed, they will reckon to him 7 days. And in the day that he goes into the sacred place, to the inner court, to minister in the sacred place, he will offer his sin offering, says Adonai Yhwh. And it will be to them for an inheritance, I am their inheritance, and you will give them no possession in Israel, I am their possession. They will eat the grain offering, and the sin offering, and the trespass offering, and every first fruit in Israel will be theirs. And the first of all the first fruits of all things, and every heave offering of all, of every sort of your contributions, will be the priest's. You will also give to the priest the first of your dough, so that he may cause the blessing to rest in your house. The priests will not eat of anything that is dead of itself, or torn, whether it be fowl or beast. Moreover, when you will divide by lot the land for inheritance, you will offer an offering unto Yhwh, a holy portion of the land. The length will be the length of 25,000 reeds, and the width will be 10,000. This will be holy in all the borders all around. Of this there will be for the sacred place 500 in length, with 500 in width, square all about, and 50 cubits around for its suburbs. And of this measure will you measure the length of 25,000, and its width of 10,000, and in it will be the sanctuary and the most holy place. The holy portion of the land will be for the priests, the ministers of the sanctuary, that will come near to minister to Yhwh, and it will be a place for their houses, and a holy place for the sanctuary. And the 25,000 of length, and the 10,000 of width, will belong to the Levites, the ministers of the house, to have for themselves, for a possession of 20 chambers. And you will appoint the possession of the city 5,000 wide, and 25,000 long, opposite the offering of the holy portion. It will be for the whole house of Israel. And a portion will be for the prince on the one side and on the other side of the offering of the holy portion, and of the possession of the city, before the offering of the holy portion, and before the possession of the city, from the west side westward, and from the east side eastward. And its length will be opposite one of the portions, from the west border to the east border. In the land will be his possession in Israel, and my princes will no more oppress my people, and the rest of the land will they give to the house of Israel according to their tribes. This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, let it suffice you, O princes of Israel, remove violence and plunder, and execute judgment and justice, remove your dispossession from my people, declares Adonai Yhwh. You will have just balances, and a just ephah, dry measure, and a just bath, liquid measure. The ephah and the bath will be of one measure, so that the bath may contain the 10th part of an homer, and the ephah the 10th part of an homer. The measure will be after the homer, dry measure. And the shekel, 2/5 ounce, will be 20 gears, 20 shekels, 25 shekels, 15 shekels, will be your main, 60 shekels. This is the offering that you will offer, the 6th part of an ephah of an homer of wheat, and you will give the 6th part of an ephah of an homer of barley. Concerning the ordinance of oil, the bath of oil, you will offer, the 10th part of a bath out of the core, that is an homer of 10 baths, for 10 baths are an homer, and 1 lamb out of the flock, out of 200, out of the fat pastures of Israel, for a grain offering, and for a whole burnt offering, and for peace offerings, to make a covering for them, declares Adonai Yhwh. All the people of the land will give this offering for the prince, one lifted up, in Israel. And it will be the prince's part to give whole burnt offerings, grain offerings, and drink offerings, in the festival gatherings, and in the new moons, and in the Sabbaths, in the appointed place of the house of Israel. He will prepare the sin offering and the grain offering, and the whole burnt offering and the peace offerings, to make a covering for the house of Israel. This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, in the first month, on the first day of the month, you will take a young bull without blemish, and cleanse the sanctuary, and the priest will take of the blood of the sin offering, and put it on the posts of the house, and on the 4 corners of the ledge of the altar, and on the posts of the gate of the inner court. And so you will do on the 7th day of the month for everyone that errs, and for him that is foolish, so will you cover over, reconcile, the house. In the 1st month, on the 14th day of the month, you will have the Passover, a festival of 7 days, unleavened bread will be eaten. And on that day will the prince prepare for himself and for all the people of the land a bull for a sin offering. And 7 days from the festival he will prepare a whole burnt offering to YHWH, 7 bulls and 7 rams without blemish daily for the 7 days, and a he-goat from the female goats daily for a sin offering. Then he will prepare a grain offering of an ephah for a bull, and an ephah for a ram, and an hin of oil for an ephah. In the 7th month, on the 15th day of the month, will he do the same in the festival of the 7 days, according to the sin offering, according to the whole burnt offering, and according to the grain offering, and according to the oil. This is what Adonai YHWH declares: the gate of the inner court that looks toward the east will be shut the 6 working days, but on the Sabbath it will be opened, and in the day of the new moon it will be opened. And the prince will enter by the way of the porch of that gate outside, and will stand by the post of the gate, and the priests will prepare his whole burnt offering and his peace offerings, and he will worship at the threshold of the gate. Then he will go out, but the gate will not be shut until sunset. Likewise the people of the land will worship at the door of this gate before YHWH in the Sabbaths and in the new moons. And the whole burnt offering that the prince will offer to YHWH on the Sabbath day will be 6 lambs without blemish, and a ram without blemish. And the grain offering will be an ephah for a ram, and the grain offering for the lambs as he will be able to give, and a hin of oil to an ephah. And in the day of the new moon it will be a young bull without blemish, and 6 lambs and a ram, they will be without blemish. Then he will prepare a grain offering, an ephah for a bull, and an ephah for a ram, and for the lambs according as his hand will attain to, and a hin of oil to an ephah. And when the prince will enter, he will go in by the way of the porch of that gate, and he will go out by the way. But when the people of the land will come before YHWH in the appointed place, he that enters in by the way of the north gate to worship will go out by the way of the south gate, and he that enters by the way of the south gate will go out by the way of the north gate. He will not return by the way of the gate in which he came in, but will go out the opposite way. And the prince in the midst of them, when they go in, will go in, and when they go out, will go out. And in the festivals and at the appointed place the grain offering will be an ephah to a bull, and an ephah to a ram, and to the lambs as he is able to give, and a hin of oil to an ephah. Now when the prince will prepare a voluntary whole burnt offering or peace offerings voluntarily to YHWH, one will then open him the gate that looks toward the east, and he will prepare his whole burnt offering and his peace offerings, as he did on the Sabbath day. Then he will go out, and after his going out one will shut the gate. You will daily prepare a whole burnt offering to YHWH of a lamb of the 1st year without blemish, you will prepare it every morning. And you will prepare a grain offering for it every morning, the 6th part of an ephah, and the 3rd part of a hin of oil, to moisten with the fine flour, a grain offering continually by an age-lasting ordinance to YHWH. So will they prepare the lamb and the grain offering, and the oil, every morning for a continual whole burnt offering. This is what Adonai YHWH declares: if the prince gives a gift to any of his sons, the inheritance will be his sons, it will be their possession by inheritance. But if he gives a gift of his inheritance to one of his slaves, then it will be his to the year of liberty, afterward it will return to the prince, but his inheritance will be his sons for them. Moreover the prince will not take of the people's inheritance by oppression, to thrust them out of their possession. But he will give his sons inheritance out of his own possession so that my people be not scattered every man from his possession. After he brought me through the entry that was at the side of the gate, into the holy chambers of the priests that looked toward the north, and behold, there was a place on the 2 sides westward. Then he said to me, this is the standing place where the priests will boil the trespass offering and the sin offering, where they will bake the grain offering, that they bear them not out into the outer court, to consecrate the people. And he brings me out to the outer court, and causes me to pass over to the 4 corners of the court, and observe, a court in a corner of the court, a court in every corner of the court. In the 4 corners of the court there were courts joined of 40 cubits long and 30 wide, these 4 corners were of one measure. And a row is all around in them, round about to them 4, and made with boilers under the rows all around. Then he said to me, these are the places of them that boil, where the ministers of the house will boil the sacrifice of the people. Afterward he brought me again to the door of the house, and behold, waters issued out from under the threshold of the house eastward, because the forefront of the house stood toward the east, and the waters came down from under from the right side of the house, at the south side of the altar. Then he brought me out of the way of the gate northward, and led me around the way outside to the outer gate by the way that looks eastward, and behold, there ran out waters on the right side. And when the man that had the line in his hand went out eastward, he measured 1,000 cubits, 1,500 feet, and he brought me through the waters were to the ankles. Again he measured 1,000, 1,500 feet, and brought me through the waters were to the knees. Again he measured 1,000, 1,500 feet, and brought me through, the waters were to the hips. Afterward he measured 1,000, 1,500 feet, and it was a river that I could not pass over, because the waters were risen, waters to swim in, a river that could not be passed over. And he said to me, Son of man, have you seen this? Then he brought me and caused me to return to the bank of the river. Now when I had returned, behold, at the bank of the river were very many trees on the one side and on the other. Then he said to me, These waters issue out toward the east country, and go down into the desert, and go into the sea, which being brought out into the sea, the waters will be healed, turned to fresh water. And it will come to pass that everything that lives, which moves, wherever the rivers will come, will live, and there will be a very great multitude of fish, because these waters will come here, because they will be healed, and everything will live where the river comes. And it will come to pass, that the fishers will stand on it from En-gedi even to En-eglaim, they will be a place to spread out nets, their fish will be according to their kinds, as the fish of the great sea, exceedingly many. But the swamps and the marshes thereof will not be healed, they will be given for salt. And by the river on its bank, on this side and on that side, will grow all trees for food, whose leaf will not fade, neither will the fruit of it be exhausted. It will sprout new fruit according to its months, because its waters from the sanctuary are coming forth, and its fruits have been for food, and its leaf for medicine. This is what Adonai Yhwh declares, this will be the border, whereby you will inherit the land according to the 12 tribes of Israel. Joseph will have 2 portions. And you will inherit it, one as well as another, concerning what I lifted up my hand to give to your forefathers, and this land will be offered to you for an inheritance. And this will be the border of the land toward the north side, from the great sea, the way of Hethlon, as men go to Zedad, Hamath, Berothah, Sibrim, that is between the border of Damascus and the border of Hamath, Hazar-Hatticon, that is by the coast of Horon. And the border from the sea will be Hazarenan, the border of Damascus, and the northward, and the border of Hamath. And this is the north side. And the east side you will measure from Horon, and from Damascus, and from Gilead, and from the land of Israel by Jordan, from the border to the east sea. And this is the east side. And the south side southward, from Tamar even to the waters of strife in Kadesh, the river to the great sea. And this is the south side southward. The west side also will be the great sea from the border, until a man comes opposite Hamath. This is the west side. So will you divide this land to yourself according to the tribes of Israel. And it will come to pass, that you will divide it by lot for an inheritance to yourself, and to the foreigners that sojourn among you, that will gender children among you. And they will be to you as born in the country among the children of Israel, they will have inheritance with you among the tribes of Israel. And it will come to pass, that in what tribe the foreigner sojourns, there will you give him his inheritance, declares Adonai Yhwh. Now these are the names of the tribes. From the north end to the coast of the way of Hethlon, as one goes to Hamath, Hazarenan, the border of Damascus northward, to the coast of Hamath, because these are its sides east and west, a portion for Dan. And by the border of Dan, from the east side to the west side, a portion for Asher. And by the border of Asher, from the east side even to the west side, a portion for Naphtali. And by the border of Naphtali, from the east side to the west side, a portion for Manasseh. And by the border of Manasseh, from the east side to the west side, a portion for Ephraim. And by the border of Ephraim, from the east side even to the west side, a portion for Reuben. And by the border of Reuben, from the east side to the west side, a portion for Judah. And by the border of Judah, from the east side to the west side, will be the offering that you will offer of 25,000 reeds in width, and in length as one of the other parts, from the east side to the west side. And the sanctuary will be in the midst of it. The heave offering that you will offer to Yhwh will be of 25,000 in length, and of 10,000 in width. And for them, even for the priests, will be this holy offering, toward the north 25,000 in length, and toward the west 10,000 in width, and toward the east 10,000 in width, and toward the south 25,000 in length. And the sanctuary of Yhwh will be in the midst of it. It will be for the priests that are consecrated of the sons of Zadok, that have observed my charge, that went not astray when the children of Israel went astray, as the Levites went astray. And this offering of the land that is offered will be to them a thing most holy by the border of the Levites. And opposite the border of the priests the Levites will have 25,000 in length, and 10,000 in width, all its length will be 25,000, and its width 10,000. And they will not sell of it, neither exchange, nor alienate the first fruits of the land, because it is holy to YHWH. And the 5,000, that are left in its width opposite the 25,000, will be a common place for the city, for living and for suburbs, and the city will be in the midst of it. And these will be the measurements: the north side 4,500, and the south side 4,500, and on the east side 4,500, and the west side 4,500. And the suburbs of the city will be toward the north 250, and toward the south 250, and toward the east 250, and toward the west 250. And the remainder in length opposite the offering of the holy portion will be 10,000 eastward, and 10,000 westward, and it will be opposite the offering of the holy portion, and its increase will be for food to them that serve in the city. And they that serve in the city will serve it out of all the tribes of Israel. All the offering will be 25,000 by 25,000, you will offer the holy offering foursquare, with the possession of the city. And the remainder will be for the prince, on the one side and on the other of the holy offering, and of the possession of the city, opposite the 25,000 of the offering toward the east border, and westward opposite the 25,000 toward the west border, opposite the portions for the prince. And it will be the holy offering, and the sanctuary of the house will be in the midst of it. Moreover, from the possession of the Levites, and from the possession of the city, being in the midst of what is the prince's, between the border of Judah and the border of Benjamin, will be for the prince. As for the rest of the tribes, from the east side to the west side, Benjamin will have a portion. And by the border of Benjamin, from the east side to the west side, Simeon will have a portion. And by the border of Simeon, from the east side to the west side, Issachar a portion. And by the border of Issachar, from the east side to the west side, Zebulun a portion. And by the border of Zebulun, from the east side to the west side, Gad a portion. And by the border of Gad, at the south side southward, the border will be even from Tamar to the waters of strife in Kadesh, and to the river toward the great sea. This is the land that you will divide by lot to the tribes of Israel for inheritance, and these are their portions, declares Adonai YHWH. And these are the exits of the city on the north side, 4,500 measures. And the gates of the city will be after the names of the tribes of Israel, 3 gates northward, 1 gate of Reuben, 1 gate of Judah, 1 gate of Levi. And at the east side 4,500, and 3 gates, and 1 gate of Joseph, 1 gate of Benjamin, 1 gate of Dan. And at the south side 4,500 measures, and 3 gates, 1 gate of Simeon, 1 gate of Issachar, 1 gate of Zebulun. At the west side 4,500, with their 3 gates, 1 gate of Gad, 1 gate of Asher, 1 gate of Naphtali. Round about 18,000, 6 miles. And the name of the city, from the day of YHWH, shall continue to be the name thereof, YHWH Arigdiousness.